approved in Boulder County many years before this annexation for gravel mining. The site itself, the properties that were included both north of the river, which the river on this screenshot, which is a little hard to see here, is the black line that kind of cuts across on a diagonal. We have the Burlington Northern Rail line. We have Ken Pratt that splits the properties as well. Main Street is to the left side of the screen, approximately a half to 3/4 of a mile away. The Harvest Junction development is directly to the west. So this property had an existing approved plan for mining out in the county. There were existing leases and agreements with the gravel mining companies to have this area mined. But the property was brought into the city of Longmont. The city council agreed to annex the property. It also included a portion of land that the city owns, which is directly south of the St. Vrain River, and was purchased as open space. We purchased that property knowing that the property was to be mined for its gravel, but the city felt that that was an investment that we wanted to make in that parcel at the time, and so we own that, and that portion was brought in along with the parcels then that were owned by Diamond G, and which again includes those properties north of the parcel that we owned, and then everything south of 119 here in this yellowish green. The application to the city, because of it having the existing mining already in place and bringing that in so that it could continue to be mined in the city of Longmont, the only way that we could allow that is to do it through a PUD. So the property itself was owned PUD, planned unit development, and the planned unit development basically was the guidelines and the mining regulations for this entire property that's going to be mined. And so we zoned it as PUD. The council approved the mining plan, which you see here, and in a second I'm going to show you the reclamation plan that was also approved at that time when it was brought in. At the time, we were just adopting the Envision Longmont comprehensive plan, and as a part of this annexation, there was some confusion amongst the property owner and staff that were working on the Envision Longmont at the time. So there was a land use amendment that came in at that with the annexation, because the Envision Longmont document did not reflect the discussions that had happened, and so there was a bust in the consultant showing those land uses on the property. So we had to process with this annexation a amendment to the comprehensive plan, the land use map, and I'll show you that in just a second. So what we have up on the screen right now then is a blow up of the area that includes where Costco currently sits today, the location where the property is that we're looking at tonight for the In-N-Out, the house pad property that you guys have seen recently for the affordable attainable project that the city's been working on down here directly in this location, and then the remainder of the property, and including the city's parcel to the north. Because of the amount of gravel that is going to be pulled out, and because of the way the gravel mining process works, we know that there's not going to be enough dirt left after the mining to fill these parcels all the way up for development without bringing in additional fill dirt. So the original plan that was approved by the state mining group that then we included in our plan identified locations for possible ponds in the interim until those areas were able to be filled in. But the ultimate goal was that these areas would be filled in and development would be able to occur. There was some confusion with the public on the documents that were put out on the website back in around the 2019. People assumed that because they saw lakes and ponds and green, they assumed that was going to be open space. But it was never shown on the comprehensive plan as open space, at least nothing south of Highway 119. So the LACP amendment that we worked on and brought forward to council that reflected what the discussions had been that were not reflected in Envision showed, again, our parcel north of 119 as being Parks Greenway open space. We then had some, it is employment. So this would have been like our mixed use employment designation. We would have had a medium density residential and then a low density residential land uses for these properties. And so this is what council approved at that time. And again, this all was approved in 2019 with the annexation of the property. Now we fast forward a year. After the annexation and before December of 2020, the Costco folks were starting to look around Longmont, trying to find a site. Originally, they were looking over around Hover. The areas on Hover were not going to work for them. They identified this location as a potential spot. We worked with them, going through pre-application meetings and discussions with utilities to confirm that the location would work. But the thing that jumped out to everyone was that we had existing leases on the property related to the mining, that there was a cell that was shown directly in this location, the gray area. So the property owners had to work with Wholesome and Aggregate Industries. Wholesome is now the person who owns this lease and is doing the work. They were able to come to an agreement on how to handle the loss of gravel in this location. And so then they applied, they came into the city, they requested a PUD amendment, which modified the original PUD to remove the mining cells from the Costco site and also the site where the in and out is going to go. It also then modified the berming and buffering that was required to make sure that it was located closer to the areas that were going to be mined. Also, as part of the application, because the use was a different use than what was originally shown on the LACP amendment that we processed in 2019, they came in with another amendment. And we also then had to rezone from PUD to the applicable zoning classification for the properties. And then they also at that time processed a preliminary plat. So all of this started in December of 2020. Okay. Up on the screen now is the, there we go. Yes, this is the a conceptual drawing that shows the rezoning map that was approved. It's just a color rendering versus the actual meets and bounds, almost plat-like document that we would typically show, but this I think represents a little bit better. Again, we have Highway 119 just to the north of the Regional Commercial Center, which was zoned for the Costco parcel, as well as covering the gas station that is in the center of the site near Highway 119. We have an inline commercial building on a portion of this site, and then we have the In-N-Out Burger that will be between both the gas station and the inline. We also zoned the property multifamily, which is where the house pad property was. You saw a rezoning. Ultimately, we rezoned that to mixed neighborhood because of the density reduction that was needed. And I take that back. We rezoned it to PUD. Apologize, not a mixed neighborhood, but we did do a land use amendment for that. And then the parcel to the south that is adjacent to Quail Road was shown as mixed neighborhood. So the next slide that we're looking at here is the Envision Longmont comprehensive plan amendment that was also processed then with the Costco. So as you may recall, we had the mixed neighborhood, we had some industrial economic development kind of land uses up here, and we had single family. They left the single family, modified the mixed neighborhood, the medium density, added in some multifamily, added in regional commercial, and also added in some mixed use corridor zoning as well. So the comprehensive plan, if you look at the most updated version, would reflect these land uses on this, or these future land uses on these properties. Our zoning map would reflect the regional commercial for the site that we're looking at tonight along with Costco. It would reflect the multifamily neighborhood, or I'm sorry, PUD for the house pad project, and then mixed neighborhood for the apartment buildings that are being worked on to the south of the site that we're working on. The rest of the property that is under mining right now is still all zoned PUD to allow for the mining to continue, and that mining has been going on now for almost 2 years. The last document here that I've got on the screen to show you is the preliminary plat that the Planning Commission approved with that application that came in December of 2020. You approved the lot that was for the Costco, as well as the lot that it has the inline on it, and then the future in and out. This is one of our recommended not a condition of approval, but approval with a condition that it be met, is that this lot is going through a replat right now to split it, and that needs to happen before we can approve any site plan for this property. So that's one of the items that you'll see in the staff report. We have a few applications in for these parcels directly out in front of Costco right now. We have a Lazy Boy Furniture, and we have a bank that are currently going in, and I think Phil mentioned those in his staff report in some of the background. Again, house pad is in this location, and then the multifamily that's going in is down here on this lot to the south next to Martin Street and Quail Road. All right, so as everybody knows, I hope everybody read their packet, the commission tonight is in a different role than normally would happen. You are actually a recommending body on this application, which is a conditional use. And this came about in 2021. There was actually discussions prior to COVID about creating this regulation, but it was not able to be actually adopted by the council and go into effect until April of 21. But the council was approached by concerned citizens that had some concerns with the amount of development that they felt was occurring near parks, greenways, and open space. And they felt that that should go through a more rigorous public process that would entail a recommendation by the Planning Commission and a decision by the City Council. The City Council considered that regulation change, and they adopted it with Ordinance 2021-16. So the way that, without getting into all the minutia, which we can if you'd like, but in general, what it requires is that any major development application, preliminary plat, a conditional use site plan, that those applications, if they are directly adjacent to a park, greenway, or open space, and adjacency within the regulation is defined as including anything separated by right-of-way, including Highway 119, that has to go up to the City Council for review, and they're the decision-making body. So tonight, you are acting as a recommending body, similar to if we were doing a comp plan amendment, a land use amendment, and annexation. So just think of it in that respect. So again, just for the public and everybody to understand, this had to go through a major development application. So we had pre-application conference with our staff. Neighborhood meeting was required. They had to go through our DRC review process. I think Phil noted that we did 4 reviews on this project to make sure that the regulations were met. And then tonight we're looking at PZ as the recommending body, and ultimately council will make the final determination of whether or not to approve or not this application. So with that, I'll start to get into the nitty-gritty here a little bit, and we can always go back if you have more questions. So the orange dot represents the approximate location of the in and out. This is going to be a drive-through restaurant along with outdoor seating and indoor seating for the use. It is next to Ken Pratt Boulevard on the north We have Harvest Moon that comes down to the east side. We have the Harvest Junction residential development and apartments to the southwest. And then Harvest Junction commercial area, which includes the Best Buy, Lowe's, some other restaurants, and retail opportunities to the west. Oh, yeah. As I noted again before, property is zoned regional center. Again, the location. The reason that this is recommending it again is because of the open space property to the north. Again, we have the zoning districts showing what everything is zoned. Again, the pink is the PUD. Again, because of the mining, that is the way that that is allowed to occur, to follow that PUD plan. So the parcel to the north is currently zoned as PUD, where typically our open space properties are either zoned public or they are zoned ag. So in the future, I would expect that that zoning will change. So the in and out, again, with the drive-through restaurant, we're looking at a little over, right around 3,800 square feet. The elevation shown on the screen is an example out of your packet. In your packet, you have all the elevation drawings for you to take a look at. And the applicant will definitely, who is here tonight, has their consultants, has a presentation to walk you through more detail about their operation and what they're proposing. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I do want to show really quick with this slide. There were some questions from Commissioner Popkin that staff went and provided some answers to. Jane forwarded the emails to you. Hopefully today you're able to hopefully take a chance and look at those. But again, just for the public, I want to make sure that they're aware of what was discussed and some of the responses so that they have an understanding of what was presented to the commission in full. Out in the open. I can't, my mind's not working the best tonight. Full disclosure, transparency, there we go. We're on, we're going. It's getting past my bedtime already. So the first question was related to the minimum EV charging parking requirements and bicycle parking for this application. Tonight we do have a number of staff in the room tonight from various departments, including public safety, public works, planning, and transportation planning. So hopefully if you have any additional questions, we can have them come up and talk about our regulations. According to Zach, who is here tonight, the applicant was required to provide the 4 spaces based on the regulations that we adopted that match the state requirements for EV parking. Based on the proposal by In and Out, they have exceeded the requirements. So they are, as I understand, providing 4 EV chargers on site, where they would not have been required to have 4. They would have had a different ratio of EV ready and EV chargers on the site. So they actually exceeded that regulation. And then Ben Ortiz, the transportation planner, who's here tonight, who reviewed, also explained the requirements based on percentage of parking spaces. That is the correlation to the number of bicycle parking spaces that are required. And Ben explained that the 6 bicycle parking spaces, which are the 3 inverted U-racks, would need to be provided to meet the minimum amount of parking required in the above scenario. And he states that with 39 parking spaces, the minimum bicycle parking requirements is 2 spaces. So they exceeded that requirement for bicycle parking. There was some concern with some parking spaces of whether or not there was a way to get out of the development. And I don't have a larger site plan view, I apologize, but there is another entrance into the development and circulation around the inline building directly to the east of this property, and the applicant can answer any of those questions for you about that. The next question was asking about the siting of the bicycle parking and what staff's role was in that. And Ben explained that based on the applicant's proposal, he believed that that was the best, all right, maybe I shouldn't say best, that it was a, was one that we would recommend for a location for those bicycle parking spaces. So we did not ask them to make any changes to what they had originally submitted. And then there were some questions about whether any estimate was done as to how many customers may come by walking from the adjacent uses. We spoke with the In-N-Out representatives. They did not have a number, but again, they are assuming that based on just proximity to the adjacent uses, that there will be some that will come by both ped and bike, and that in going through our site planning process, we have tied into the existing multimodal corridor and multimodal opportunities that we have with the bike trails along 119, the sidewalks and bike lanes that are in Harvest Moon, as well as the other connections that are on the site for Costco, and other connections that will be built with the other buildings that I spoke about, the bank and Lazy Boy and any of the future development. They are building an internal north-south spine between their buildings and the Costco. So there will be a pedestrian connection that actually ties in to the house pad development to the south. So we tied in with the house pad development to provide that walkable connection through, instead of having only one opportunity, which would be walk along Harvest Moon. So they have multiple options to get from house pad. And that was the extent of the questions that were presented in the email. Just a elevation that shows kind of the evening view of this as it's lit up. And then finally, to end my extremely long presentation, again, the Planning and Zoning Commission is being asked to make a recommendation to the City Council. You obviously have three options tonight. You can recommend approval, you can recommend denial, you can recommend approval with conditions. And as Phil noted in the staff report, and as I mentioned earlier, we are recommending that the commission recommend to the City Council approval, and we are noting that a condition prior to recording any approval for the site plan, that the plat itself has to be approved by staff. So with that, I apologize again for the length of time, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of background understanding of how we got to this point. Do you have any questions for me? And I'm more than happy to come back after the applicant.
Yeah, let's go to the applicant first.
All right.
Good evening, Commissioner, Chairman Poland, Commissioners. Appreciate you guys taking the time to be here tonight. Staff, between Dawn and Grant and Phil, who's not here, my compliments to them. You guys have a really good staff working for you, and we appreciate the quick responsiveness and their willingness to hop on a call anytime we need something, and that's not something that we find too often. Everybody's so busy these days. These guys always find time for us, and we're appreciative of that, and so your time this evening. Tonight, I'm going to go more into introducing who In-N-Out is. Dawn did a fantastic job going over the history of the site, and what I thought might be helpful for you guys is to introduce ourselves to you. Many of you might have already been familiar with our company, our burgers, and hopefully you're as excited as I am to be here tonight. We see this as an opportunity that we're very excited. This will be our first store in Boulder County, and we have some to the north, we have some to the south, but I think our site here is going to really focus and help out and really get to the point of your comprehensive plan, the Envision Longmont. which one of the things I noticed in reading that several times when preparing for tonight and our site plan proposal is the interest in bringing in outside or, outside from the city residents, travelers, visitors. And when people see an In-N-Out, it's humbling to hear, it's instant, they recognize it, they want to stop, and you will have visitors from out of town and travelers going through that'll want to stop here, maybe go to Costco, and everybody gets to benefit from that. So with that, I'm going to hop into here, and then at the end, I'll be able to answer any questions for you guys and gals. So moving forward, our story. In-N-Out Burger was founded in 1948 by Harry and Esther Snyder. Over 76 later, the company remains family-owned and is now led by Lindsay Snyder, their granddaughter, who continues the legacy of quality, service, and community. We take pride in being a truly American company that reflects values of hard work and integrity. Our focus has always been on building strong connections with every community we enter. Our mission statement, seen on the screen here, is more than just words. It's a guiding principle that shapes everything we do. It's why we remain dedicated to serving the highest quality food, creating a supportive work environment, and contributing to the well-being of the communities which we serve. It's a statement that is so deeply embedded in our culture, we make sure it's present on every business card and paycheck that we all see every 2 weeks, and to remind us constantly we're here to support the community and do what we can. Commitment to our associates. I can speak on this one myself. In-N-Out is, yes, I'm biased. I work there. It's a job. I've had 3 jobs as an adult. My last job was 22 years. I'm on the newer end at In-N-Out. Most of the tenure is 10 years plus. I'm not there, so I'm pretty low on the totem pole. But from an individual that hasn't enjoyed the perks of a company appreciating and the valuing its associates, I can give you my testament tonight that it is something that I don't take for granted. Nor would we take for granted the opportunity to have a store in your town. We understand that our associates are the cornerstone of our success. We foster a team-oriented atmosphere that encourages growth, provides extensive training, and ensures that every associate feels valued and supported, which is a reason in 2024, as you can see on your screen there, In-N-Out was rated as one of the top 6 companies in the nation on Glassdoor with an over 89% recommendation. This commitment translates into a positive environment that benefits not only our team, but the communities that we serve. Our project is designed to align with the Envision Longmont Comprehensive Plan, as I mentioned earlier. We paid a lot of attention to that to make sure that we are kind of fulfilling the future goals that the vision that the city has, as well as the Land Development Code. We support the city's aim to create sustainable, connected spaces that promote multimodal access and community interaction. One of the most emphasized goals in the plan from my interpretation is the fostering of vibrant, livable areas that bring people together, which we support through our site design with the pedestrian pathways, commitment to sustainability, which is evidenced by us exceeding, as Don touched on, the EV chargers. We were required to do one. We're doing 4 level 3. If you're familiar with the EV chargers, they are the high speed, and you can get up to 80%, as short as an hour or so, I believe. So grab a burger and charge your car at the same time. Our strategic location at the corner of Ken Pratt Boulevard and Harvest Moon Drive integrates well with the existing retail and residential infrastructure. This not only facilitates easy access for local residents, but also enhances economic activity by attracting visitors, making Longmont an even more vibrant regional hub. The proposed project spans 1.64 acres, featuring a 3,887 square foot building and an 1,100 square foot covered patio. We've planned for 39 parking spaces, including ADA and EV charging spots, and a 490-foot drive-through lane, accommodating up to 29 vehicles to ensure traffic efficiency and customer convenience. Our site is thoughtfully designed to integrate with the surrounding infrastructure, including existing pedestrian walkways, bike lanes, and roads. This helps ensure seamless access and promotes safety for all visitors, aligning with the multimodal transportation plan. We've designed our project to adapt well to the existing and planned infrastructure, ensuring it fits naturally into the area. Our design incorporates expansive architectural features that align well with the aesthetic of neighboring properties. The flat roof design integrates seamlessly with the surrounding structures, ensuring visual harmony. We've included metal awnings, full brick wainscots, multiple pillars and arches to add depth and character to our building. Additionally, the design features multiple windows, enhancing both the building's functionality and its welcoming appearance. These thoughtful elements reflect a commitment to quality and community integration. This rendering highlights some of the standout features of our site design. Our drive-through lane, which is longer than average, spanning 490 feet to accommodate those 29 vehicles, ensuring efficient traffic flow. Additionally, our 1,100 square foot all-weather patio is designed for year-round use, equipped with ceiling mounted heaters for comfort on colder days. This space creates an inviting atmosphere where families and friends can enjoy their meals together in a comfortable setting, enhancing the overall dining experience. What sets us apart as an employer? We are proud to offer starting pay significantly higher above the state minimum wage. Currently, we're offering starting pay at $19.50 an hour. Our full-time associates also benefit from comprehensive perks, including paid vacations, flexible schedules, and health coverage. This commitment reflects our belief that a supported team leads to a better guest experience and stronger community ties. Investing in our communities where we serve. We actively contribute to the communities we serve through donations, partnerships with local charities, and participation in community events. Our goal is to be more than a restaurant. We aim to be a trusted and supportive community partner. This slide highlights our commitment to giving back to the communities which we serve. Over the years, we've supported numerous organizations throughout northern Colorado, many of which have likely benefited Longmont directly or indirectly. Our contributions have helped bolster programs that support children, families, and individuals in need. Organizations such as Ralston House, CASA of Larimer County, Hope House Colorado, and others showcase the types of impactful partnerships that In-N-Out Burger fosters to uplift and support local communities. In-N-Out Burger is proud to contribute to the economic vitality of the communities where we operate. Our new location in Longmont will create numerous local job opportunities, providing competitive wages and comprehensive benefits that support career growth and stability. Beyond employment, our operations stimulate local economic activity, encouraging spending and supporting nearby businesses. The economic benefits extend further, as the revenue generated by our business helps support public services, infrastructure improvements, and community programs. This positive ripple effect reinforces our dedication to not just being a place where people can come to dine, but a business that plays an active role in bolstering the economic health of Longmont. Our investment in the city translates to sustained growth and prosperity for its residents and the wider community. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm happy to address any questions and look forward to further discussion on how we can be a positive addition to the Longmont community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing item. I would like to, at this point, go to the public hearing. Nobody signed up for public invited to be heard. I would invite anybody in the public who would like to come forward and speak to come speak. Seeing nobody come forward, I'll go ahead and close out public invited to be heard, and we'll move to questions, comments, motions from the commission. Commissioner Height.
Staying close to his microphone. That's too close. I only have 3 questions, I think. First, there's a reference that this is a secondary use. There are primary uses. The primary use, I think, being big box retail or big box employment-based activities. This is secondary. I don't know why it's secondary, but in any event, this is a 25-acre lot. Costco takes up how much of it? Over 50% of it?
16?
Costco is 16%. You
16 acres, sorry.
16 acres of the 25, so it's over 50% of it.
Yes.
Thank you. That answers that question for me. Related, Don, I don't know what you called the housing to the south that we recently approved. Is it within 250 feet of this structure?
House pad itself, let me double check.
It is not.
I didn't catch your name.
Daniel Pocius, In-N-Out Burger.
Thanks.
I
Dan.
apologize for that, Commissioner Height.
Good to meet you.
Likewise.
Give me just a second to measure. If you want to go to your next question while I'm
Yeah,
looking
I was
that.
going to suggest that. Question number 2 is your north elevation, which is where your patio seating is, also faces Kemprat Boulevard, which I think our land use code requires that any part of a drive-through restaurant facing a roadway has to be 50% glass or transparent door. Do you meet that? I didn't see that, or it doesn't look as such in my view of your
I have those percentages on here. I could share it with you. I got bad eyes, so sorry. Are for the windows doorway percentage calculations on our north elevation, we are at 50.99%.
Ooh, interesting how that number came out just like that.
Yes.
But thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
And then from a practical standpoint, as I look at the overall plan to subdivide this lot 2 into your property, and then what's next door? What's going in there? Do you know?
Multi-use commercial.
Okay. But your access point in the multimodal plan, I think it was exhibit 8 to the materials that we received. It might not be your exhibit 8, but it's your multimodal plan identifying transportation issues. It looks like you're kind of proposing or using or at least relying upon access through the subdivided side of this lot. How's that going to work? Are you going to have a cross?
We have.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. From Ken Pratt, I'm assuming
No,
going south.
from coming in off of Harvest Drive, it looks like an entryway. There's a blue arrow, at least. Coming in off of Harvest through the south side of, if it's lot 2, I'm going to call you lot 2A, and they are 2B.
Yes.
And you are coming through 2B to get to 2A. Is that correct?
For pedestrian,
No, cars.
for vehicles,
Uh-huh.
we have vehicles that are can be accessed to our site from the entrance off to the lot to the east. You're correct, and we also have our own 3-lane entrance and exit on our parcel.
I can see that, and I can, well, anticipate that you're kind of vehicle heavy. There's a lot of vehicles that come to your In-N-Out Burger, I think, that drive through it. I mean, the public has raised that as an issue, and I think my experience with your dining facility is that, yeah, you're a very attractive restaurant that brings in a lot of vehicular traffic. As I look at the way I would want to come into your facility would be through that south entryway on Lot 2B to queue in line to get through your drive-through. My question is, you're obviously, somebody is subdividing this property. Is there going to be the right for you to use probably fairly intensively that access way?
Oh, it is. We do have a cross-access agreement that will allow that. Although we pride ourselves on how we handle our traffic, because it's has the potential not to just be an issue with the city. It's a customer service issue for us, right? So although we were only required to do 180 feet in our drive-through, we've far exceeded that at 490 feet, stacking for up to 29 vehicles. Plus, it's important to note that our operations are such that as soon as a car gets to the menu board and beyond, we activate mobile ordering. We send out 4 or 5 associates, depending on how many people are out there, with their walkie-talkies, and this is all being monitored above our grills in the manager's office, so that we are constantly monitoring what's happening out in our parking lot. And that will include from the menu board beyond. We'll have people out there that will be taking mobile orders, processing payments, and directing traffic if need be. So what we've learned over the years, some of our early stores 0 to 200, we just celebrated our 415th store opening today. What we've learned, especially over the last couple of years, is this isn't just an issue we want to wait for planning commission or somebody to ask about, because customer service is everything to us. I'm sincere when I tell you that. We want to make sure that our partners with the city, the residents that we serve, and visitors from all over have nothing but the greatest experience. So we feel that based off of what I described as our normal policies and procedures, along with this extensive drive-through, as well as, to your point, the cross-access agreement, we feel confident in our plan.
Okay. The flip side of the entryway is the exit way, and I'll admit I buy my gasoline from Costco. It's the cheapest gas that I've been able to find. But that junction or that intersection, you're going to be next to the gas station, and the entryway, the in and out to the parking lot of Costco. That's kind of the main area. It's very congested. And how many more vehicles are you going to bring into that? And do you have are you confident that the traffic management is going to work there well?
Yes, I'm confident, and I can't wait to see you in our store. We have traffic reports that not only that we had to do for our entitlement here, but when the original project went through, the numbers support that with the way the studies were done, it could handle the traffic. But I'm pleased to tell you that our report and the daily counts are even less than what was proposed for this area. So based off of the studies, and mind you, these aren't just numbers that come out of the normal handbook for a restaurant. Again, we acknowledge we are a different sort of drive-through, and although we, in some cases, some jurisdictions, we could just use the numbers out of the traffic manual and the handbook. But that doesn't do anybody any favors. What we've done on our specific traffic letter is we've taken locations that have similar stores in the area and similar, demographics, and we use those numbers in our traffic study just to be extra hard on ourselves to make sure that even with those higher traffic counts, we're still below what was originally studied years ago. And I'm pleased to tell you that we are.
And do you have that answer, Don?
It's over 700 feet from the house pad development.
Thank you. The follow-up on the egress from your facility onto, I think it's called North Costco Road. I'm assuming that road's owned by Costco. Have you conferred with Costco on your plans and how it might impact their customer trafficking?
Yes, we're all part of reciprocal easements and agreements that they'll have to look at and review and approve, as well as our neighbors. So none of this would be a surprise to them, obviously before we open.
Okay. You have conferred with them, or you would confer with them? I didn't.
Oh, right now we're working with the developer who's been reviewing our plans and approving all of them. Ultimately, Costco will have a review and approval, and I'm sure they've already seen it. I guess I'm suggesting that there is a more formal review and approval that we get prior to being able to open, and that's when I consider it completely done. But the developer is here. He can answer and provide a little bit more insight on that if you'd like.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Would you mind?
Hi, Drew Golden. So we have a reciprocal easement agreement with Costco that covers the entire development. And as part of that, Costco gets to review all the other users and their site plans. And they have already done that. We are in the process of getting that recorded as is required in the REA, but they have approved it.
They have approved it.
They have, yes.
And Mr. Golden, I apologize too. I think I thought you were somebody else when I first met you.
No worries.
But thank you for that. But Costco has looked at this and approved it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So we have, just because I'm going to own the commercial building next door. So they've seen it both as just in and out and as the olive
And
lot
out
too.
too.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you. I'm done. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Popkin.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Height asked one or two of my questions, so I will not re-ask those. Thank you, sir. Daniel, let's start with you. Thank you for the thoughtful and detailed presentation.
Thank you.
We appreciate the overall very thoughtful and seemingly well-aligned proposal for along with our comprehensive plan for that site, for that region. Just a couple initial questions, then I want to clarify a couple things with Don, and then I'll come back to you on 3 topics. So I'll give you a chance to get your head in the right
Sure.
the right mindset there. First, you seem fairly enthusiastic about the site, about the project, about the company overall. That's fantastic to hear. Drive-throughs, obviously, maybe, I don't know if it's first and foremost or one of the primary goals of them is to attract vehicular traffic flows and bring folks through the area. This location is in an interesting spot because you have Costco and you have some other retail and housing that's coming in nearby. This doesn't have to be an exact science, but how much is in and out expecting customers to come via vehicular traffic directly or from adjacent retail just to frequent your store?
Specific to vehicular?
Vehicular and then by pedestrian.
So I did see your question. Dawn was kind enough to forward it to me to see if I might be able to provide some insight. And I did. And that insight is we don't do studies on pedestrian traffic. I wish I had a better answer for you, right?
It's an honest answer.
You know what I can tell you, though, is obviously we do expect some, especially from the residential pad. Our thought was perhaps Costco folks might not want to have a $1 hot dog, although I don't think they're $1 anymore. They might want to come over for a burger. So yeah, which is why it was important that we tied in, we took into account the multimodal plan. As far as vehicular from that surrounding area and outside of the area, real technical questions, I have a tendency to, misspeak. So we did bring our traffic engineer that, did the original memo. He'd be happy to, maybe answer some of these questions for you as it comes to local specifics. I'm not sure if we do have anything, specific to the Costco shopping center, but I'd give him the opportunity to answer that if you'd like once we're done here.
Okay, thank you. I don't think that's necessary at this time. I was just curious if you've
Sure.
done kind of pedestrian customer studies as well, just to understand, given the proximity and the opportunity that presents. One other question for you for a moment. Don mentioned in his presentation that the Development Review Committee did 4 different reviews of this proposal. From your perspective, just why did it go through 4 reviews?
So I took this plan on as it was coming out of second, and so this is a new baby for me, and I'm so thrilled about it, as you can tell, as you mentioned. I can't really speak to the first 2. I know there weren't significant changes over the entire process. I know the EV was something when I jumped into it. It was right when you guys had passed one of the building codes, which required you guys to adopt the new state mandate. I studied that, really close because, as a company that's not real familiar with EV, nor is anybody, I wanted to learn up and read as much as there is to learn about it when it comes to Colorado and Longmont. And that's what I learned was at the time of our first plan check that it went through, it wasn't required. But as soon as you guys passed, I believe it was the electrical code from 2023, that kind of mandated you guys to adopt that state code. So that's one example that I can speak of personally that I was involved with. History before that, in looking over the plan checks, nothing was significant that, there was a lot of back and forth on. But sometimes it takes four. And I can tell you the last site plan was a pretty light when it came to comments. So it was probably could have got done in three, but just pushed through that fourth one.
Appreciate it. You have the misfortune of coming before this commission after we have seen multiple drive-through proposals over the last, let's say, 4 to 5 months. So for lack of a better phrase here, you're going to unfortunately face a little bit of grilling on a similar topic there, but know that that's really not intended on my end. I assume that In-N-Out's going to do most of the grilling here.
Yes,
So
very good.
You can take a brief
I see what you
pause.
did there.
You can take a brief pause there, and we'll come back to you on 3 topics of kind of the exact location and thought behind the outdoor seating, the safety of the site flow, and then the multimodal transportation. So I'll come back to you in a moment.
Appreciate that.
Cool. Don, thank you for your presentation and for the advanced responses on some of the questions. You have satisfied many of those, so I appreciate it up front. You had mentioned in your presentation to the commission tonight, you were describing the overall site plan and the kind of pedestrian corridor spine from house pad to this retail area. Can you just walk us through that and maybe just show a map there just so I can understand what that exact flow looks like?
Let me get my presentation back up.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. And while you're pulling that up, I'll just share the intent of like where I want to go with this. This is as Commissioner Height was alluding to, there's a lot of traffic, people, vehicles that are going to come through this site for the retail. I guess you wouldn't get to the housing through this site per se, but more as a little bit of an attraction to this space. And so when we're thinking about pedestrian crossing parking lots, crossing, then is it called North Costco Road or whatever, North Costco entrance? Is that the name of the street itself?
So it's a private drive. It's
okay.
not actually city right of way.
Got it. So when we're talking about that spur that goes into the Costco parking lot and splits into the gas station that goes in front of this site to access In-N-Out, there's sidewalks, there are bike lanes, but there's still just a lot of vehicular traffic and potentially pedestrian traffic that's going through. So I want to just understand truly what the connections are here.
Certainly. So what's up on the screen right here is the preliminary plat. And again, house pad is down here to the south, and then Harvest Junction Residential, which is the single family, and then we have the apartments to the north up here. When we were designing and laying out the Costco, we have the requirements within the parking lot that we have to have direct connections from the parking lots to the entrance of the building. Again, the Costco building itself sits down in probably this southwestern quarter of the lot. And so what you'll see is that we've provided on the Costco property a number of connections that go through the parking lots to the building. And then we also have provided, for example, access points out to the Highway 119 bike corridor, to the bike path. And then as we've been working on the development itself, we obviously, we talked about before, have the bike lanes that are on Harvest Moon. We have the sidewalks as well. What we looked at was that we knew that there would be an opportunity to try to have folks that are at the bank, maybe working there, or at the furniture store, or any of these other locations, that they may have interest in going over to Costco, either to do shopping before they leave, or to purchase lunch, or do other things. Maybe even they went to Costco and now your bank is this bank down right here, and you want to walk over and make withdrawal without having to get in your car and drive over there. Maybe you're parked in the eastern portion of the parking lot, so really it's not that far to walk. So what we anticipated and what we are requiring as each of these pad sites come in is that they are building a north-south sidewalk along this property line all the way up that ties in to all of the other on-site connections that exist that come in off of Harvest Moon and come in from 119 and that connect to those locations that go to Costco. So this is the connection, and then in the house pad development, we provided an access point that comes off of this connection and goes through an open space area between residential units to the internal sidewalk within the development.
Got it. And so just from my understanding, anyone who's watching, the lot that is Costco's here, lot 1, that whole rectangle there includes the parking lots and the structure and the physical building, right?
That's correct.
So
and the gas station.
And the gas
Yes, the gas station is on the north
end, side, yeah,
right here.
So then lot 3 and 4 are between Harvest Moon and the Costco parking lot specifically.
That is right. Yes.
Okay. So then the pathway that you're describing is the border of the parking lot and the retail that would go in there.
Correct. And on those, we have buffer areas, 10-foot wide buffer landscape areas at a minimum, that the parking, that this transport, or that the sidewalk goes through that location so that it's buffered from being right next to the parking lot or the drive lanes. Because as I recall, there is a major drive lane if you turn in that accesses all of these parking bays in front of Costco that runs
that's correct, yeah.
right up the side.
And then since we just saw house pad earlier this year, is there a through connection
No, not for vehicles.
for
It is-
pedestrian?
Yes, for pedestrians. We tied into that location with a sidewalk that wraps down and towards the east a little bit to an open space. Because as you may recall, we have an alley that wraps around almost like a phone receiver.
Yep.
In the back. So we didn't want to run them through the alley. We wanted them to go through more of an open space area. The nearest open space area that was available was an outlot between homes that's roughly right in this location. So the path comes north, heads west a little ways, ties into the path that they're constructing on the bank site, the Lazy Boy, and then we're waiting for this next user to come in. So there is going to be a little bit of a gap, but that's just kind of the way it's progressed.
Got it. Thank you. That's super helpful. And it's also just sounds like a very thoughtful site design overall. So thank you to staff who've been working on that
Yeah.
with a variety of different, applicants here. If we go over to the multimodal plan
Okay.
now,
Do you have that on yours? Okay. All right.
we can have an assist from Daniel here. That's fine.
Yeah, this one right here. This is more of the, this is the one that I have on my screen.
Okay.
Go back. There you go.
Perfect. Excellent.
This also has transportation for vehicles. This one doesn't.
Okay. Thank you.
So what's slightly unclear to me is where pedestrians cross. So Don, what you just showed us all is how kind of this connected spine that you described for pedestrians coming from house pad and maybe other residential all the way through to other uses, what other retail customers could take and hop on. Where would someone, if they're coming to the applicant's restaurant here, where would someone cross by foot to
So-
get to the main restaurant?
So the anticipated location then, if you're looking at this, is that this dash line right here is that property line that we were talking about. And so what we would then be looking at when this lot develops is providing a pedestrian connection up at that intersection.
Directly
location.
there. Okay.
Right.
Is that in any plans that are here? Because I didn't
So
recall seeing
the-
that in the plans here.
My recollection, okay, Brian worked on it. I did not work on the Costco to the extent that he did. My recollection was that we showed, again, the pedestrian connections in this location with the anticipation that there would be a cross connection here, a crosswalk for folks to go to the north to get up to this pad site. That's my recollection from the Costco site plan that we approved.
Got it. I would love to. You can sit down in a moment, but I would love to confirm that before we take a vote on this, because I think that's a really important piece of the site connectivity here with
Sure.
the rest of the development
And-
in ensuring safe pedestrian flow here.
Yep, I'll take a look.
Yeah, thank you. And Daniel, if you know the answer to that, and if it's in some map that I just
No,
don't
it
remember,
wouldn't be. It's not in ours, but for the purposes of our site, as you can see on the screen, there is current pedestrian access at the roundabout. There's
Yeah.
2 areas.
That I saw, and that gave me a little bit of a little heartburn there, because I was afraid that people would see that goes out of their way, and they're just gonna cross where they think that should be anyway.
So in a zoomed out version of it, because in your scenario, until we have development to our south, really the only pedestrians that we need to be careful for are people coming from Costco, right?
Right.
So Costco's multimodal, the bigger area, which I can share a map with you, does show coming up from Costco, they have a walkway all the way up to Ken Pratt through their parking lot. So if they're already in Costco, dropping their goods off in the vehicle, and then if they continue to walk up, there's part of that multimodal is a connection to that. I think it's a 15-foot, Don, or a 12-foot pathway that
Yeah.
runs adjacent to Ken Pratt.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop you for a second. So I see that, and I'm looking at Google Earth too. So I see that, and generally understanding human behavior, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and that's going to be the diagonal through the Costco parking lot, or at longest kind of like wrapping over to where this pedestrian corridor that Don just eloquently described for us is going to be. I think if I'm understanding the site connectivity here from what your proposal is, if people followed the route you were just suggesting, that kind of goes around the Costco gas station, I think they'd have to walk past, because of how the drive-through is set up, they'd have to then walk around the drive-through lanes and kind of back around and kind of complete almost what seems like a Tetris piece to get back into the property in between your restaurant, the drive-through, and the other retail to your east.
So there's 2. The one that you just mentioned, and then to the west, there is actually another walkway down from Ken Pratt on the west edge of our property.
Okay. And so then, so is that the red? I
Yes.
see. That's the
Yes.
red dashed line that takes them around the drive-through the other way and a
Correct.
little bit shorter route. Okay.
Yes.
All right. That reduces some of my heartburn there. I would still love to confirm. I presume you wouldn't have any objection to a crosswalk that's directly north of that pedestrian spine that Don was describing.
If it's already planned, pedestrian safety is always a number one. Safety in general is a number one concern, but yeah, pedestrian, we would have no objection to one getting put there.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it facilitates easier access to your site. So,
Right.
And my concern, along with it sounds like Commissioner Heights, on the traffic flows in general, just making this as smooth and directly connected as possible.
Yes.
Great. Let me see if that's everything for Don at the moment. I don't see any other mics lit right now. Is that correct, Chair? That is correct. Thank you. I will continue then. Lovely. Okay. Let's start with my kind of next area of questioning here, which is on understanding the location and strategy behind your thought on the outdoor seating location.
Sure.
So if we could pull up, I think, if you have a map of either the outdoor seating or like that area, or I guess if we had that, even the multimodal.
How about that on the screen?
That's perfect.
It's not real zoomed in. Sorry.
No, that's great for now.
Okay.
So I'm reading directly from your review criteria analysis that was attachment 10, and then we'll get to the map in a second. And I quote, "The location of the proposed In-N-Out Burger near the existing Costco to the west and the proposed multi-tenant commercial building to the east creates a commercial area that will provide a variety of uses for the community that have been designed in a way that supports activity in the area." And separate quote, "The In-N-Out Burger building includes a covered patio area on the north side," which you said includes heaters and
Yes.
A bunch of other nice amenities there to make it a nice space on the north side of the building. This location of the patio will allow for customers to enjoy the significant views. To me, when I'm reading this, it suggests, and from your presentation, it suggests that like encouraging outdoor seating is one of the many goals that you have with this project and design. You probably wouldn't build that space if you didn't want customers to be able to enjoy it well. So
Right.
I'm going to just, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and they will feel challenging, but the goal is just to understand your logic and how you're setting this up. So we have a heated patio. We have an inviting setting intended for year-round dining. When I look at that map, to the north of that patio, directly to the north, you have the drive-through, and
Right.
and it's not like the end of the drive-through. It's, let's say, the middle of the drive-through. So on an average busy evening, cars would easily back up to that point. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah.
Yeah, assuming your business
That's
is
fair.
doing well.
Yes.
Yeah. So cars are going to back up at least to that patio. So you'll have cars basically idling right there. Then at the same time, just north of the drive-through, you also will have, and before we go too north of the drive-through, you also have 2 lanes of the drive-through merging into one. So you have traffic condensing there. Then just due north of the path, north of the drive-through lanes, you have Highway 119. And I think, is that 4 or 6 lanes of traffic at that point?
It's 4.
Four lanes right there.
To the best, I've only been on it today. Sorry.
Welcome
to the
to
best
town.
of my recollection.
Welcome to town. So let's say at least 4 lanes of a highway traffic there.
Right.
To the west, we have the Costco gas station, like directly in line of sight. And then to the south, we have the Costco parking lot. And, well, really to the south of the eating area, you have your establishment. And then to the east, we have a mining area with some retail and other stuff. I guess I'm curious, what are the significant views that people are enjoying from that space?
You know, I guess I use that term in the fact that I am maybe biased in that I'd rather sit outside on a patio with what you described as busy areas than I'd rather be, in between 4 walls inside. Colorado's a beautiful state. Longmont, my visit here today, allowed me to not just do a site visit, but I used the opportunity to drive all around Longmont, and especially downtown. Shout out to Jefe's Mexican restaurant. That place was great. It's such a wonderful area, and that although yes, you're gonna have a drive-through, yes, you're gonna have Costco, yes, but we do have a 50-foot buffer before you get to that 4-lane. The distance between the highway and our drive-throughs is 50 feet. So it's good views to my opinion as far as being outdoors. And yes, you're gonna have the occasional car going by now and then, but in an effort to get as many cars as we did in that drive-through, in order to hit one of our bigger concerns, which is being a good neighbor, being customer service oriented, we would have our preference to put that patio there is what allowed us also to have 490 foot of drive-through space, as well as having the room for the extra EV chargers and the parking stalls. So am I overselling the significant views? Maybe, but to my point, I'd always rather be outside than inside the 4 walls of a building. So I guess I was speaking from that vision.
Got it. Thank you. Did in any of the design review processes or conversations with staff, were there other layouts in terms of where the outdoor seating might go, and like to the south or in the front, or I guess that would be the east of your structure itself, on the roof? I mean, you have a really elaborate kind of rooftop design, or just roof general, with the different like towers and parapets or whatever the term is.
Yeah. As I previously mentioned, I had the, well, I like to look at it as I was fortunate to take this over at between second and third plan check. I can't speak of what happened before that. To the best of my recollection, maybe Don can speak of it. This is the only layout that has ever been presented. I believe there were some changes in regards to where we're putting the EV chargers. But for the most part, what you see here, there have not been significant changes or revisions requested where it comes to the patio location.
Okay. And look, at the end of the day, that's a business decision for you all on where you put it, and I recognize that. But when I'm looking at the layout there, it strained a little credibility to say significant views, and then kind of assume that, frankly, that a lot of people are going to want to sit around a drive-through lane. But maybe you have other experiences in other establishments that you guys run in the company.
Well, I just want to take a moment. I appreciate
Sure.
the feedback.
Yeah.
I can tell you are very upfront, and I appreciate that. And an intern, sometimes I come off a little harsh, so sorry about that. But yes, our experience is where you see this patio is 99% of the time near the drive-through, and our customer service experience, we strive to always improve if where it's required or suggested. And our experience has been that this is does lend itself to an enjoyable customer service experience.
Fair enough. Then I hope you get a lot of EVs coming through that do not idle too much gasoline and fuel emissions. Fantastic. All right. Let's talk site safety here. So in your review criteria analysis, again, staying with attachment 10, the design includes features to promote the safe and efficient traffic flow. And that's a direct quote. And I think you said you all, in your presentation, you take pride in how you guys manage traffic in general and the customer flow and overall.
Yes.
So that's great. And hopefully these are just clarifying questions at best. Part of the reason I was asking about the bicycle parking to staff earlier was to try to understand how cyclists are going to get to that part of the parking area. And so let me describe what I am seeing on the site, and maybe we can throw up the slightly larger multimodal plan again. That would be wonderful. Great. So we have the bike parking in that little green box right next to that little outdoor patio we were just talking about. Understand the justification for the number of parking. I'm wondering how cyclists, if they're coming here, or if people are coming here by bike, are going to get to that space to park. So I guess there are a couple routes. One, if they're coming on the greenway, they would come through that sidewalk and likely come down that red dotted line and around.
Yes.
Correct, on the sidewalk. If they're coming from other parts of the neighborhood, they may very well be coming on some of the very established and well-marked bike lanes that area has. So when people are when cyclists are coming to this exact part of the entrance to your property on North Costco entrance, for lack of a better road description, if they're coming in the road bike lanes, they are behaving like vehicular traffic. And maybe I'll turn to our bike specialist in a second too to help me clarify this. But I'm trying to understand the site flow of how vehicles are going to use the parking lot going to the drive-through and coming out, and where there are potential conflicts for cyclists coming in, especially if it's at dusk when dinner time is, and that's probably the highest volume of traffic flow.
Right.
So hopefully we don't want cyclists, if they're following the law, to be cutting across the entrance to your property for vehicles and hopping on that sidewalk to then get on to that little red dashed line, turn right, and go north up to the bike parking. Then that suggests to me that they are ideally turning right into your parking lot with vehicular traffic flow, and then somehow navigating either to the left or right, unless it's a one-way, to get to that bike parking. And I envision a lot of situations in a fairly busy, high turnover customer environment where you're going to have cars, maybe even some trucks, and cyclists all navigating that fairly tight parking area. So how do we make sure that people get to the bike parking area in that far northwest corner without running afoul or running into, literally, or being hit by other cars and trucks?
Sure. I appreciate the question. So there's a couple things that I can respond, and then maybe we have a bike expert that can come up, right? What I can tell you is from an in and out standpoint, one of the things we struggle with, and admittedly so, with working with cities and meeting their code, is staying below the maximum foot candles for light, because light is safety. This parking lot, we are below the threshold, so I'm pleased to say we're below the threshold there, but we have lights spread out throughout this area. So in your scenario, if it's a bicyclist who's using the rules of the road as another vehicle would, tells me they're an experienced bicyclist. And from a retailer standpoint, all we can do is provide well-lit parking lot for a nighttime scenario. For nighttime and daytime, we do have a crosswalk that goes from North Costco entrance into the sidewalk, which will lead right to the bike racks. Beyond that, on those busy scenarios that you mentioned,
Sorry, where is that? What's the
at the
sidewalk
exit? all
Is that coming from the path that goes along 119?
where the mouse is right there.
Oh, you're talking about that one coming
Yes,
up from
yes,
there. Oh, yeah, no,
yes.
I see that. Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
So, to the extent of your questions, we would hope that with experienced bicyclists who are using the roads as vehicles, between the well lit parking lot and on the busier nights when we do have associates deployed, which is most of the time, if we have cars at the drive-through and beyond, we'll have also associates out there that are also directing traffic and also keeping in mind pedestrian safety, bike safety to the best of our ability.
Got it. So then, if I'm understanding correctly, and I haven't heard from Don or you, but maybe either of you or other staff can clarify this, is there any guidance or signage on traffic flow that's happening in the parking lot? Where, like, if I turn in here to enter from the Costco side here, am I directed one way or another, or does it become a free for all once you get into the parking lot?
Go ahead.
It's not a free for all because the
Good.
width of the street, the width of the parking areas are wide enough for two-way parking, just as they are in other parking lots. So the drive lanes are wide enough to accommodate cars in either direction. So it's not a free for all.
Okay, but that does clarify that traffic can turn once you enter the site.
You can turn left.
You can turn left.
or
You can turn right.
right.
And so then, if you're entering towards if your goal is to get to the drive-through lanes, you can
You're gonna
turn right, following a counterclockwise rotation here of the site. You could also turn left and go around that way.
Because there's parking spaces that they
But you could also
easily
enter
access.
conceivably,
Yes.
you could also enter the drive-through that way.
Yes, you
And
could.
you could be coming up from the other adjacent retail to the east.
From
Yes,
the
you
east.
could.
And then entering there. So you potentially have 3 different ways for cars and trucks to be entering the drive-through or navigating the parking lot. And then you also have vehicles that are coming out from that counterclockwise rotation of the drive-through that are going to be then turning out of the site, right?
Or going to the inline building to the east.
Or going to park and recharge their vehicle.
If I may,
And
real
again,
quick.
if you're a bicyclist who's using the road, you're used to following the rules of the road. You understand how traffic works, what your obligation is and responsibility is. You're going to function as a car, so you're going to have multiple ways to get to those parking spots. If I'm got my kids younger and I'm on a sidewalk or a bike path, then I'm going to use the sidewalks to get them safely up to the front, which is using the dash line that runs north-south through along the front of the building. So it looks like there's multiple ways to get to this site safely, depending on your expertise as a bicyclist.
When we have I would like to assume that people are always going to cycle and drive to the best of their ability. But when we have other drive-through properties, is there directional flow or guidance that's given to vehicles that are turning in to basically navigate that in a consistent cycle? I'm just
It
genuinely
varies by
asking.
the way that either the operator wants to lay out their site. So for example, if you're laying out one-way lanes, then we're going to make sure that you have directional arrows on the ground with signage that directs people in the appropriate way through that parking lot. But the majority of the projects that we see have two-way traffic in both ways to give everybody the ability to make an appropriate choice on how they either get in or out of that development. The McDonald's had an angled parking with one-way only that you saw out at the Sandstone Ranch because of the depth of the lot. They were restricted on that, so they could not do that. They had to make sure, though, that the area up at the front of the building was wide enough because we had to have the ability to set up the fire truck out front in front of that building to provide adequate fire protection. So that area had two-way traffic, but the other area with the angled parking that they had would only have been one, so that would have directional arrows.
Got it. Thank you. I like the outdoor the bike parking area for a couple reasons. It's visible from the outdoor patio. It's visible from probably some windows from the restaurant itself. I hesitate slightly because it feels like everything has to funnel towards it if you're going to be using that mode of transportation. Do we have Ben? Ben, are you here? Ben Ortiz? Wonderful. Thank you. Just one final question here.
No worries. Thank you. Ben Ortiz, Transportation Planner. I didn't quite catch the question.
I didn't ask one yet.
Okay.
I was asking if you were present before I
Oh,
asked
I
the
am
question.
here.
Thank you.
I'm sort of present.
Welcome. When we were talking about when Don was briefly giving an overview of the response to my question that I sent via email, he was mentioning that generally that seemed like a plausible, and I think there was even stronger language used where I think it was more than plausible of a location for the bicycle parking. I see merits to it, as I just said. Were there other, when you're looking at a site in terms of optimal location for bicycle parking, I'm sure you're weighing in a lot of different factors when you think about that.
Sure.
Can you just walk us through the decision making or the thought process on that?
Yeah, of course. So the Land Development Code is it doesn't provide precise language in terms of where bike parking should go. It says 100 feet from the primary entrance of a facility, and then also highly visible location. And so I did like that location because it is proximate to the outdoor seating area, the seating area, the patio there, and there'd be a lot of eyes on the bike parking, and so that would deter theft. And then it's not a terribly long walk to the building entrance. So, we have seen some retail facilities, for example, some restaurants where they'll put the bike parking and then run it parallel to the front facade of the building near the entrance. You could do that, but then it also constrains the walking area. So we felt this was a good compromise.
Got it. Were there other locations that were considered for the bike parking on this site? I don't know the history of the.
Yeah, well, that location was what they proposed in the first review.
Okay.
I looked at it. I thought this makes sense, so I didn't provide any further comment.
Understood. We were talking before, Don, Daniel, and I, about some of the potential traffic flows of cyclists. One is coming from the west via the Greenway through the sidewalk and would follow the sidewalk to the bike parking. Logical, safe, direct, with a U. The second was through the bike lanes that are created in the whole region. That would involve on-road bicycle rules, so they would follow, in theory, the flow of traffic, vehicle traffic as well, which would be turning into the parking lot itself. And the third would be maybe the irregular or illegal approach, which is you follow the bike lanes and then you cut across the crosswalk there between the sidewalks to hop on the sidewalk that puts you directly on the sidewalk toward the bike parking. Those seem like the three most plausible behavioral routes. I'm not endorsing the illegal one, technically. So are you at all concerned about any of the flows or potential conflicts from the vehicle circulation on the site with the parking lot and the drive-through, plus the route that bicyclists would take if they're following the bike lanes to get there?
We're always concerned about bicyclist safety. But I think Don alluded to this earlier, is that bicycles, according to the Model Traffic Code, which the city adopts by reference, states that bicycles are considered vehicles and subject to the same rights, rules, responsibilities as a motor vehicle, which means you have to, merge into traffic when you can, do it safely, ride on the right-hand side of the road. Obviously, there are some exceptions because a bicyclist doesn't have the ability to, accelerate the way an automobile does, and they can go up on sidewalks. But there's an expectation that they follow the rules as best they can, and but we also recognize that some people are going to take shortcuts just because it's quicker and easier. Unfortunately, there's really no way to prevent all of those types of behaviors from happening.
So then, yeah, and I agree with that, and that is just an unfortunate reality. From your standpoint on the planning side, though, to what extent is that factored in to the decision of citing bike parking or the directional flows that you'd expect, if that is going to create those windows of opportunity to go the easier and more direct routes, whether it's legal or not?
Yeah, so I'm a cyclist, but I'm experienced, but I don't ride a lot all year long. And I was thinking from my own personal experiences, I would have no issues per personally riding through the parking lot and getting to the bike parking. And again, you know, those particular drive aisles would facilitate two-way movement. So you're riding on the right-hand side of the road. You're being cautious, looking for those rear light camera lights, and just, you know, being careful and minding, you know, the area around you to make sure that there's not going to be any conflicts with backing up cars and that sort of thing. But I wasn't terribly concerned about it.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Two last clarifying questions, then I'll yield to my fellow commissioners. Don or Daniel or both, at any point in the development review process, was it ever considered that this site seems somewhat conducive to a counterclockwise flow for all traffic? If you're accessing the drive-through, that is inherent in the design, and then potentially for just making everyone who enters to go counterclockwise around the parking area if you were just looking to park. And if you were coming in from the adjacent retail, to come in and follow that counterclockwise flow, either through the drive-through or around the parking lot. I'm just curious if that was considered at any point from a traffic management. You have more experience navigating drive-through properties than I do. Don and the planning team have been looking at this for a while, so I trust folks who have been working in this space for a while, but I want to just know what the considerations were.
Yeah, there was, I don't think ever. I'm sorry. We never looked at it as a counterclockwise or a clockwise. We pride ourselves on, you know, minimum widths of our drive aisles to allow for double traffic, to give people the opportunity and allow us the ability, if we are backed up on the drive-through and we have associates out there, we enjoy the flexibility of being able to make changes on the go if needed to help facilitate traffic movements. And that's kind of what we'll rely on with those wider drive aisles.
The only thing that I would add is that from a fire standpoint, having the widths that are required for them to be able to set up their trucks and have access to provide public safety on the site, they need a minimum of 20.
Minimum fire lane 20-foot, aerial apparatus access 26.
So part of that is also in play then when we look at restricting the lane widths to be in one way. If they are narrower, then our fire vehicles trying to get in there to set up don't have the room.
Oh, absolutely. I'm actually not concerned about the width at all. I'm just concerned about the traffic flow. And I'm wondering if there are too many points of conflict with how this, so I'm going to sit with that for a minute and decide if I'm overthinking this, and hear what my fellow commissioners have to say here. I appreciate the direct responses and the clarifications. Before I pass it over, Don, I was just curious if there was any map that showed the crosswalk before in the packet here.
So there is not. The overall development plan for Costco does not show a crosswalk to this lot. So right now we are building a path to nowhere. So if the commission would like to consider a condition to make that a requirement of this development, you could do that if you so choose, or we could try to ask for that from the other developer of the parcel to the south when they come in. So I would just say that at this point, it does not appear that In-N-Out is willing to provide that access in our discussions.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. So, Daniel, just to confirm what Don was saying,
Sure.
just in adding the crosswalk access to the property from that north spine to your property, that's not something you would be amenable to at this moment.
Earlier when it was discussed, when you had asked, I was under the impression if we would oppose it when the developer to the south was going to connect. Because right now, the way I see it is it would be a crosswalk to an undeveloped pad. When you had asked, I was saying we would not oppose that future developer that develops there to add that crosswalk. The way our site's laid out, I do see an access to our site using the current layout of the plan. So my desire would to be ask the developer to that south when he comes in to add the crosswalk, because as it sits now, there is access, safe access to our site.
Noted. Thank you. Jeremy, a quick legal question. Is there any I mean, the crosswalk technically goes on private roadway that is not the applicant's, from what I understand. Is there any legal constraint that we would have of proposing a condition for a crosswalk that's not on their property per se, but connects to it? And any staff can answer this if that has been discussed.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jeremy Terrell, Assistant City Attorney. Commissioner Popkin, great question. I don't know anything in our code specifically, but I would have concerns about In-N-Out's ability to meet that condition when it's subject to like someone else's constraint. I think the condition is better imposed upon the developer coming into the south, who would do that crosswalk and has control of the property, versus In-N-Out, who doesn't have control of that property. I know it's a little bit weird right now because we have the developer in the room. They're all working closely together. They have the easements and access agreements, but I don't think we could require In-N-Out to have that as a condition for their approval.
And if I might just add on to that, we don't have control of that property, right? So I don't want to.
We're talking about the roadway, right?
We're talking about the property to the south that it would connect to.
Yeah, but the crosswalk is just in the roadway with maybe the like sidewalk and wheelchair accessible access
ADA
point.
ramp.
Yeah,
Right.
The
that's
private roadway?
The private.
like the Costco Drive entrance.
But it's all private, Costco owned. We don't control it. We don't have the right to go in there. We would have to get agreements from Costco and any other developer that is in that area that owns the property that Costco doesn't, directly to our south.
Okay, thank you. I will yield to my fellow commissioners for now. Appreciate all the clarifications.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Boone.
Thank you, Chair. I have two really quick questions. The development directly to the east, which is under construction right now, so maybe this is a question for Drew, or maybe to you, I don't know. What are those businesses intended to be, or do you have tenants yet?
I have a few. It's a mix of quick serve restaurant, a dental, nail salon. So it's going to be some food, some medical, and then I don't know for the rest.
Okay. So my second question is related to that, actually, because do you feel comfortable, well, right now, the site for the In-N-Out project is part of the construction site for the other building, and it's being used for staging or whatnot. So, and the other building is way ahead of the In-N-Out site. So what happens when the other building is finished and it's got its parking lot? Will the construction traffic come from that east entrance and go through? And do you have enough staging area on the In-N-Out site to not interfere with the traffic on the Costco road or the parking lot of the building that's under construction? Presumably, it's going to have tenants in it before this one's even under construction.
Yeah, and my understanding is In-N-Out can stage and build just on their property, but I'll let Daniel confirm that. We are, I don't know if it's official, likely to use the same builder. So there's a lot of pre-work that we're doing for In-N-Out. The parking, obviously the drive-through or the drive-in, we're constructing because we're first there. So a lot of what they are going to own at the end of the day, we are constructing because we're first in. So at the end of the day, they'll have to do their building, most of their parking lot, their drive-through, that kind of stuff. But a lot of it will be done beforehand.
Okay, thank you. In general, I think it's a good project. I like the project. We've seen several other drive-through projects in the recent past, and I think this is probably the best one. So I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Don, in a case like this where we are talking about a crosswalk, in general, is it for the first person to make? In general, is it for the first person to build, or is it for the second person to build? What makes the most sense?
I think it's going to depend on the way that the site is owned and or located. Their argument is that they don't own the road, so technically then I guess we could argue that we'd have to go to Costco to get them to do it. But it's unfortunate, that the original goal was that all of these would be connected and that we're not going to have that connection.
In general, what goes into making a crosswalk?
They would have to put in a handicap ramp down to the
Like a
private
curb cut?
private drive, and then they would stripe that.
Okay. So the curb cuts would be the responsibility of the road or the...
I guess it would depend on where the property lines sit
Sit,
in
okay,
relationship
to
to
the
that road.
road.
If they are at the back of the curb, then we're dealing with Costco then. If it's inside the gutter, then we're dealing with the property owner.
So what would you suggest as a way that if we want to make sure that this gets done, but we don't really feel at this point to put it on In-N-Out Burger, what can be done to facilitate getting this crosswalk implemented?
So my recommendation at this point would be that another condition be added to the plat, that we get a public access easement from their sidewalk out to the Costco road so that we can have the ability for somebody to be able to construct that handicap ramp
And
to
then we'd have,
receive.
and then we'd have to do that when we do the site plan for the south side.
Correct. And then based on what think I've heard from the developer who's sitting here as well as the applicant is that we're still going to have to deal with Costco because it's their road.
Okay.
So
We can put in a condition, but we can't condition Costco to finish off the work.
correct.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Popkin.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, for clarifying a few things there. I just want to state for the record. Look, I know that that through corridor is not there, but there is an existing sidewalk already that goes to that space where we're talking that the only thing missing would be the curb cut and a crosswalk.
Correct.
There is already a crosswalk and curb cuts directly west of there by about 15 feet to get across towards the rest of the Costco parking lot. This seems very fitting with the layout of the rest of the site. And so I guess and it would seem like a missed opportunity and perhaps just a vast inconvenience from a flow standpoint to not have that direct connection from the Costco area. So I'm very much in favor of the overall plan that the applicant has brought forward. I think this is a missing piece to just make it really fit within the goals of a regional center that is walkable, that is for multimodal transportation uses, that should attract customers to the advantage of, frankly, everyone who's running a business in this whole regional center. So I would welcome, maybe some of my fellow commissioners have a suggestion on how we can resolve this. Really, the only things left are a curb cut. It's not like we're building a whole extensive sidewalk pipeline. And I don't even know if waiting for the next businesses to come into the south would solve this problem either. So I don't know if waiting for that actually is prudent to do.
The concept, Commissioner Popkin, we don't disagree with. I agree with everything you guys are saying, but we only control what we control.
Yeah.
What you're asking of In-N-Out to do is to make improvements on somebody else's land that is a condition you might put on us that we may not ever be able to meet, which means we may not never be able to build our store. So although we don't disagree with the concept, pedestrian safety is a number one concern of ours, but legally speaking, and the way these approvals will need to get had, I can't sit here today, all the effort and time, the 4 rounds that we've gone with our plan checks, for what appears to be a small condition you'd be placing on us could be a fatal blow. So we like to control our own destiny. And although depending on the position, as Don suggested on the plat, I don't believe we'll have any opposition to that. We'll have to see where the property lines are. Happy to look into that. Was it a missed opportunity? Perhaps it was. But to the extent where we find ourselves right now, it's a condition that, as much as I want to comply, trust me, I want to comply. What you're asking of us is something that we can't do.
I respect that. I appreciate it, Daniel. And I'll just state where my intention is coming from.
And just from my side, we're not trying to be difficult. Genuinely, it's Costco's road. I agree with you. I agree with Daniel 100%. It's a missed opportunity. I'd love an opportunity to make up for it. We can build the curb cuts, absolutely, and then go to Costco and say, pretty please, can we put a crosswalk here? But unless they say yes, we don't have control over it. But I'm all for putting the curb cuts in. I agree with you 100%. It makes sense. But it is Costco's road.
Yeah, no, I respect that. Look, my intention here is to clarify a safe, walkable area. I don't have any intention of putting a condition on this that is impossible for the applicant to meet, which is hence why I involved our attorney in my previous line of inquiry. So I fully respect that. You don't have to sweat on this.
Thank you.
I guess this is just trying to like problem solve in real time. So don't take it personally on this.
Right.
Sorry, I missed your name in the back before.
Drew.
Thank you. So if I was hearing you correctly, it sounded like, are you in control of the curb cut piece of that? On the, I guess we're looking at that would just be on the in and out side, right?
I think technically at this point, yes.
Right.
It depends on if it's right of way or not. But it's not right of way because it's Costco's access road.
Questions where the property line sits.
So while you're figuring that out, here's the problem I don't want us to run into, which is we get through this is built, there's a great regional center that is activated and people want to walk across, and because In and Out didn't build a curb cut on their side, and then we were waiting it's like a chicken and egg problem times like 4 on who's going to do what at what point. Nothing happens here, and you just have this kind of disconnect in the flow. So if there is a reasonable condition we can add to set this up for success that doesn't prohibit the applicant from moving forward, that's where my interest lies here. And I just want to involve staff because this is not my expertise, but I want to try to get ahead of this and in a way that does not create legal problems and does not create any headaches for the applicant.
Yeah, to Don's point, I think it depends on where the property line is, and off the top of my head, I don't know exactly where that is. So I can tell you, if you look at this right here, this is built. This curb is built. This we built when we built Costco, just to make sure that this would always be a straight shoot across. So this is in, so it would require some demo and rebuilding to make that happen. But I don't.
I mean, there's like one block of cement that would require a demo to create the curb cut.
Be,
like it's pretty trivial.
No,
so is that within your control, that side?
It depends on where the property line is. It depends on if the property line sits behind the sidewalk or at the road. So if it sits at the road and I own the sidewalk to the south,
I see what you're saying.
Then I can do it. If the property line is Costco owns to the back of the existing sidewalk, then Costco's amenable, right? They don't want anybody to be hurt on their drive aisle, so they're likely to be amenable to this. But we just
Through their utilities also, we have to take consideration, cable, gas. This is bigger than, unfortunately, I don't want to open a can of worms so we can't go back down. This is bigger than just Addison striping. I wish it was.
So again, for the applicant's reassurance and developer, I don't want to open a can of worms that can't be closed either. But given the integral nature of this connection between the retail, Costco, and other retail and housing that is going to be coming up the south of the side, I think it's prudent for us to spend a little bit of time seeing if we can get this right.
Of course.
So again, that's my goal here. I think you had something you want to add.
Oh, no. I was just here to finish up. Any other questions?
So it sounds like, if I'm understanding, maybe Don, Jeremy, Grant, on this, we're trying to clarify the property lines on both the north side of that entrance road and the south side to figure out, I guess, first and foremost, who's in control of the curb cuts. and the ADA accessibility. Secondly, then I think we've already established that the crosswalk itself, which is really just paint, if I'm understanding correctly, unless it's like a raised crosswalk of some kind. But if it's just a traditional crosswalk, it's paint. That's Costco's decision, and requiring that would not be legal for the applicant to act on. Okay. Good. I will pause my question. While you're up, I'll ask one more question, and then I'll let Commissioner Height take it over. It's this pedestrian access that's like one of the core things I want to just clarify and see if we can figure out. The other piece that still doesn't sit fully with me, and I appreciated staff member Ortiz's expertise on this. I appreciated the planning department's expertise, is the confluence and possible conflicts of the site flow of vehicles around the parking lot. Conceivably, if we're looking at this diagram here, it's a one-way and let me clarify one thing. Am I misinterpreting the entire flow of the drive-through? Is it going clockwise or is it going counterclockwise?
Counterclockwise.
So people are, so the
They're
arrow,
entering at the double. Yes.
okay, so the arrows are facing the wrong direction.
No, they're facing the right way. It's hard to see. Yeah.
I think those are like cars, and then.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so got it. So so folks enter at the counterclockwise and the northeast side of the site.
Yeah, the double entrance.
Yeah, okay. That's
yes.
what I thought originally. So conceivably, you could have vehicles coming from the southeast retail area, coming through that the 7 parking spaces up there. You could have folks entering through the main entrance part of the site, going right, going left, and all coming to try to get to that drive-through.
Yes.
That feels like 3 too many ways to get to one drive-through access.
Which is
point.
why we love the flexibility of having our associates. I can't oversell them enough,
Okay.
Commissioner. They're professionals at what they do. We have associate walkways out there within the 2 drive-through lanes. At times we'll use delineators, we'll use signage. They are all with headsets communicating really clearly. Our goal is to not have this turn into a scenario as which you're imagining it could be, and it very well could be without proper training and efforts and personnel on the ground. This is what we do. This is what we thrive in. This is what we'll excel at.
Noted. Thank you.
Commissioner Height.
My question with the curb cut is it's to deal with the practicality of it all. First of all, Drew Golden, you own the property to the south?
Yes.
Okay. Don, the walkway to nowhere is directly south, kind of on the property boundary of Mr. Golden's property to the south. And it comes up and it's this, on this map, on the west side, the dotted line next to the hard line.
The light gray one?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm assuming the hard line's Mr. Golden's property line, the dotted line's the edge of the sidewalk.
Roughly, I would say that's
And it comes
correct.
up to Costco Road, which is directly south of your Daniel red pedestrian access way.
Yes, sir.
And then there's a driveway. It looks like it's already cut to get into the parking lot. Why couldn't you just go straight across right there? Why couldn't we make you put a curb cut in directly opposite the sidewalk to nowhere so that the sidewalk goes somewhere, and then you make it connect to your red line? You could do that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Commissioner. I don't
If you
follow
go straight north of the lines I was just talking
The
about.
gray ones?
Yep. If you went straight north and put a handicap access curb cut on your property that went to nowhere until the sidewalk gets built, then we could impose upon Mr. Golden or whomever develops this property with the sidewalk to make a similar curb cut. And then Costco could put in striped lines. And there's the point. Could you live with that point if we made that a condition on you?
Respectfully, no. But allow me an opportunity to explain.
Absolutely,
Okay.
I love you.
I think by adding that ADA ramp right now, you're almost encouraging these pedestrians to walk out into the street,
Well,
right?
I want
So-
them to come somewhere to your property right now. through some place.
Right, but wouldn't it also suggest giving people until that crosswalk is in and the ADA ramps on both sides? I would prefer not to have a handicap ramp there, which is encouraging people until the proper safety striping is installed on Costco's property on that private drive. I would prefer not to have that handicap ramp there. Does that make sense?
True. I have the authority, or we have the authority, 1502-060C, to put a timed requirement upon you. Would you accept the requirement in the future, as soon as that sidewalk from somewhere gets to somewhere, would you then accept the responsibility to put the curb cut in then? I mean, you could probably more easily do it now.
I
If
agree.
you want to come back and do it later, because it needs to be there. You're hearing that.
No, and I'll go as far as to say I agree with you guys, right? Don's going to throw something in the back of my head here because I think it was a missed opportunity, but we're doing what we can to try to fix it. So, to the extent that if I were to say, yeah, I'll just go ahead and throw it in right now, it takes away from my whole point I just made, which is it comes down to primarily pedestrian safety.
I hear what you're saying.
So that the timing, I would be fine with no later than, say, 12 months after the completed entitlement for the property to our south. Would that be fair?
Don, go ahead. No, if you want to opine? Come on, Josh. And Daniel, I don't want to put a time limit on that might be ephemeral. I just want it to happen
Sure.
effectively to allow you to go forward and your point's well taken that if you build it now, maybe it becomes an attractive nuisance and somebody goes there who shouldn't be there, and that's an appropriate concern. But it needs to go in at some point in time, and it needs to go in kinda across the street from where the sidewalk is planned to go. So I would like to impose it as a timed requirement. I don't know how to set the timing exactly. Don, do you have a opinion?
So if I understood what Daniel offered was that after the entitlements are done on the property to the south, they would have a year to be able to tie in.
To complete the curb cut on our property.
Okay. And is that rational?
Which seems reasonable, right? Because then we would know that we have a curb cut going in, and then they could build their receiving side.
But what if Drew gets his entitlements and then as he's trying to sell it, the market goes to poop and it's 18 months before he can flip it? Then Dan's off?
We're going into a lot of theoreticals, guys.
Of course we are, which is why I don't want to play on a time limit. I want to play on a hard requirement. I don't want it 12 months. It doesn't mean anything
What
to
if-
me.
what if
I don't think
it's-
it means anything
right.
to you.
What if it's 12 months after the C of O is issued on the property to the south? Because
How about
then
12
it
months?
doesn't matter how
Who's going to
long.
build the sidewalk?
So I'm fine with even the shorter the period, guys. Just so I mean, it's on record. It's a concern to do it, to not to do it. But if we're going to be held to a timeline, as a gesture of how we want to contribute to the city of Longmont, I'll fall on the sword. We'll commit to doing it at whatever time period you guys want to give me. But I do think there's a certain amount of exposure that's going to be had if we're asked to put this curb cut on behalf of the city, and God forbid something happens because there is a curb cut there and no sidewalk.
I appreciate that, and to the extent I ever suggested that we do it that way, I'll track that. But I do think that I would impose it as a future requirement that when the sidewalk's built, for you to mate up to it with a handicap.
Sidewalks are built.
Not this sidewalk that I'm talking about. I don't believe. That's what I understood.
No, we're still in the
The
north-south
sidewalk
one.
to the
Oh,
south.
oh, okay.
on-
Sorry.
On the edge of Mr. Golden's property.
That's, On the south side.
Not that
No.
runs north-south.
The east-west on the south side
That
of
one
the
exists.
road exists.
Yeah, but, well, does it? Drew?
Right. Yes, the connection down between that one that splits that gray line you were talking about, Commissioner Height.
It would not be a bridge to nowhere. It would be a bridge to. It would be a crosswalk, literally to an east-west sidewalk on the south side of that road that already does exist. That just doesn't have a curb cut or a crosswalk. Irrespective of whether there's a sidewalk built from the house pad north,
There's still a sidewalk there. And to that extent, Commissioner Popkin, and I'm saying, all we'll agree to go in and put it in at whatever timeline that the ADA, the curb cut, we'll agree to do that. But just so we're all aware of what certain exposure may exist out there to do the crosswalk or even the curb cut prior to,
Completing the crosswalk. Don,
Yeah.
are there provisions with the city? I would assume there has to be where a city can go at some point and tell people we need a crosswalk here,
Typically not within a site.
not within a site.
This is
Not
your-
unless they were to
your-
come
This is
back.
your one time when you're approving it.
The only other thing I guess I would point out is that if we show the location of where that sidewalk would be constructed in the future, and hopefully we could have Drew, I'm assuming that is gonna have to go back to Costco for approval, part of the agreement. They would at least see where this curb cut's gonna go, or this handicap ramp's gonna go. If they have concerns with it, then they don't approve it, or they let them know that there's an issue. Because Drew said that Costco has to sign off on the site plan, right?
Costco already signed off on the site.
But if we require a condition, I'm assuming you're gonna have to take it back to them.
Let me rephrase. Costco has to sign off on. I don't know how the RE is written. Costco has approved the general site plan as long as there's not material changes.
But there'd be material changes.
yes. We would prefer to not have any condition that has to do with us doing the crosswalk. It's land that we don't own. It's going to open cans of worms that we don't know what's going to be inside. To the extent that we're considering the overlook from the previous site designs, happy we'll do the condition us for the ADA ramp. Happy to do that, timed or not timed. We would prefer some time limit, so it's not going in right now. But to the extent the city's okay with that exposure and putting it now, we'll go ahead and put it now. Just wanting to be amenable to what you guys want, and safety is always first. But
Commissioner Popkin.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to my fellow commissioners for trying to help get to a solution here, and frankly to Drew, to Daniel, and the applicant team, and to Don and staff too. I think we're getting close, and I wonder if, by sheer circumstance of this slight exception to the normal process of what our role normally would be, if that's actually an asset here. So we're a recommending body on this, correct? Correct. So is there a way we can have a condition as a recommending body that before city council approves this can be, I mean, this is fundamentally about a little bit of commitment from Costco for some paint, like as that bridge to literally create the bridge between two sides of this. That's what we're talking about here. And so I don't have language yet off the tip of my tongue here, but I'm wondering if, as a recommending body in this role, we can maybe leverage that so that the project can move forward to the next phase, and then before city council signs off, that conversation with Costco can be solved.
that's longer. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I don't know exactly what the timeline would be from when we approve of this today as a recommending body and it goes to city council, and so I'd look to staff on what that process would be. But does that set us up to basically have a few weeks at a minimum, if not maybe a couple months, I don't know how long this takes to get to city council for approval, where that conversation can happen and perhaps alleviate this can of worms that I somewhat unintentionally didn't intend for it to be this big of a deal.
Yeah. And to the extent of bringing anything that involves Costco, all due respect to them, they are the 800-pound gorilla. This is a much more in-depth conversation that will take longer than our 12/17 city council date. This
So you already have a date when this is scheduled. If we
Yes, sir.
presume, well, I guess we are a recommending body, so either way, it would go to
Yes,
city
sir.
council.
Yes.
And city council could always override our condition.
I don't have a clear answer. Jeremy, do you have a thought on tip of your tongue? Can I pass the baton?
You may pass the baton, of course, Commissioner Popkin. I normally don't like fluffy conditions, but perhaps a condition such as the applicant working with staff and the surrounding property owners to the maximum extent feasible to install a north-south pedestrian crossway. Pedestrian access. It doesn't necessarily mandate that it will happen. It's just a kind of a commitment that they will work with the maximum extent feasible with the surrounding property owners.
If I may, I appreciate that we got developer Drew right next to me. Costco's the 800-pound gorilla. I want everybody to work together and be really nice and get this done quickly. However, I am here on behalf of In-N-Out. I have one goal here tonight, which is to hopefully get a recommended approval from you guys. Considering what has come up with this crosswalk, we're willing to do the ADA ramp on our property. Anything to the extent, and I'm with you. Fluffy language scares the heck out of me, and that's pretty fluffy. For you not liking it, you nailed it. But I will say that my request is simple. Please, if we're going to add a condition, make it something that's within my control. What's within my control is adding that ADA ramp, and to that extent, what's on our property. Happy to do it, everybody. But anything that involves third parties or outside parties, what seems like, and I agree with you, this should be with maybe another company, a 2-week conversation and 3 days worth of work. Stripe the other half, and you're done. What's being suggested here could very well turn into a 6 to 8 month ordeal with getting permissions. So, in closing, I can't stress enough. I respectfully request your guys' recommendation to City Council with the condition of adding an ADA ramp with or without a timeline that you guys prefer, as well as the plat. With that, anything short of requiring third-party approvals, it would not be considered a success in my own mind from tonight, as for what I hold myself to. Thank you.
Don?
So a suggestion might be that In-N-Out agree to construct a handicap ramp on their south property line if a handicap ramp is built on the property to the south lot, whatever that lot is. So there's no time. They just need to agree that they'll build their
They'll make the
side
commitment.
if we get it on the other side. If we don't get it on the other side, then they don't ever have to build it.
And if I might, to Daniel's point, waiting on Costco commits me to a specific end use for that sidewalk. So if you'll look up here, I'm not 100% sure where it is in here, but eventually there will be an easement carved out. There's a groundwater monitoring well in this general area. So while the sidewalk may end up going straight up, there's a chance that we kind of curve it away and put some turf or something in around this groundwater monitoring well. And our sidewalk ends up coming out over here. So if our site plan, if you're going to force us to do it here right now and condition it on Costco, we may get a couple years down the road and develop this piece and realize, well, the easement we need around this groundwater monitoring well doesn't allow for the sidewalk to go right here. And we have to curve that sidewalk to this crosswalk area here
A
where
little
the
more to the east.
street is. Yeah. So if, to Don's point, if we can make it conditional on a time of this lot, so we know where In and Out is best positioned to put theirs on the other side within a time period. And then, and like I said earlier, Costco's amenable for the most part. They're not quick, but they are amenable, and they recognize public safety being very, very important as well, right? If you look at their site plan and all the access sidewalks they have through their site to make it available to the In and Out lot, to the Lazy Boy lot, to the bank lot, and what connects to House Pad, they don't want anybody hurt on their property. So I have no doubt. I think they would be amenable to this because this is what's in the best interest of Costco, In and Out, us, public safety, the city. But I greatly request with Daniel that it be a timed thing for the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Height.
Drew, are you Diamond G?
Yes.
Good. If we can go, if there's any way, shape, or form that we can pull up attachment 6, which is the actual site plan,
Attachment 6.
to the materials in the packet submitted to the commission. It's the site plan. Because what Daniel had was, I don't want to say a crayon drawing, but it's kind of a crayon drawing. This is a CAD drawing.
City clerk. Scroll down a little bit and go to the agenda management portal. Pull up the attachment 6 on our packet. So if you hit the HTML agenda, you should be able to see attachment 6. Scroll down and click on. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
I guess I could use my glasses.
6.
6. There you go.
It's like page 3. Boom. So Don, the sidewalk looks like it comes up, jags west, and then goes on the edge of this property in the gas station. Is that correct? The dotted line.
One more time, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
The sidewalk, the north-south sidewalk, is that a condition of approval that's already existing against this PUD or this modified site plan for the Costco project for this? Where does this sidewalk? You said it's established. How?
So my recollection was that it was shown in the multimodal transportation plan for the overall Costco development to be able to give people the required direct access from the Costco through the parking lots out to Harvest Moon. And the only way that we could do that is to have a north-south sidewalk along all of those lots that then tied into the access points on the north Costco lot or driveway and the south Costco driveway.
So we don't know for sure if this sidewalk is on
So-
Costco's lot.
So the sidewalks are on the undeveloped lots. We are requiring the sidewalk, north-south sidewalk, on every lot that's been going through the development process to provide that access.
So on this site plan, the property to the south is Irwin Thomas First Farming Lot 3,
Correct.
owned by Drew, Golden or Diamond G. And we think, or you know, that sidewalk's going to be required as part of the development of that lot.
We are going to have at the Lazy Boy, which is on the south half of this lot
So it's even further south.
3,
Right.
is actually going to be required of Lazy Boy. They're going to have to build it to their new property line, yes.
Is that
So-
a subdivision of Lot 3, or is it going to go all the way up to this corner? I didn't think it was going to the.
It's not yet, because
And-
they subdivided the lot for Lazy Boy to be able to purchase the south
So
half
it's going
of
to
it.
build it close, but not to the end.
Correct.
And Drew was just explaining that when it gets to the end, it might deviate east, it might
might.
deviate west, it might whatever. And to his point, which was what I was suggesting, to be straight across straight north of where this depiction is, might not make sense. And what I think I would like to propose as an additional condition of approval, and I'll get to it all, and I'm throwing it out here for people to think about, which is that an additional condition to the first one, which was to get approval of the site plan, I think, is that on the site, that the condition be that once this sidewalk is completed on Lot 3, or what is depicted as Lot 3, that In and Out match it on the opposite side with a ADA compliant curb cut, that Costco may or may not approve a handicap or a cross ramp across its driveway, but we would also, I don't know if we can do this either, Jeremy, which is impose upon Drew right now the obligation to make a curb cut on his side. It's not even in front of us. Do we just make it a,
Which is why we
put
the condition that if that is done, then In and Out is required to match.
well, it's gonna be required at some point because it's in the original site plan development of the Costco development.
As every one of these lots keeps coming in, we have been requiring the sidewalk and extending it to the north. This last piece on the north side of Lot 3, we would work with Drew or whoever is doing the site plan to extend it to tie into the east-west sidewalk. Then we would look to see where it makes sense to do the curb cut. And then we just need In and Out to
Right,
agree
and
to
it's-
construct it
right.
if we get that done. If we don't get it done, then there's no
Don't have to
connection.
do it, right. And I think it's probably also fair to say to In and Out, because as it's depicted on this site plan, it goes north, it jogs west, and then goes north again. It doesn't even come close to the In and Out lot. I mean, it goes to the one side of it, but they can't make a curb cut in the Costco gas station.
Right.
So I think the condition would be when the sidewalk is completed and if it is across North Costco entrance to the In and Out lot, whatever that lot is gonna be called, that In and Out then be required, and I don't know, maybe you put a time limit on that, but it'd be required to create a curb cut that matches and allows for a pedestrian access way across North Costco entrance. Does that make sense? to the
Yeah, I
rest of
think
my-
Jeremy, or sorry, Matthew wants to take a swing at this. Matthew,
Thanks, Chair. I think I have. I'm building off of Commissioner Height's intent here, and I think I have some language that makes it a little bit more straightforward. I don't think we need to wait until that north-south sidewalk is complete. There is already an existing east-west sidewalk. Jeremy, is it kosher for us to pull up Google Earth right now? It's a public tool and resource that the public, the applicant, and the commission all have access to. Can we pull that up for a second? Because this will make this really easy to see.
sure.
Thank you, Daniel.
Oh, were you not?
Oh no,
Was
you
that
can-
okay?
You can pull it up. Yeah, I don't mind. I thought Jeremy was doing it for real, and then I realized he was just tapping his
I don't want
fingers.
to steal your thunder.
Okay, no, you can. You know your address.
Okay.
You can pull it up. I just want to get to the site and show the visual because I think that will help everyone in the room. In the meantime, Jeremy, I sent you draft language if you want to take a look of what I'm about to propose in case you want time to think.
You want satellite view?
Yes, please. And I want street view.
At the
So,
where am I at here?
so ideally that's Google Earth, not Google. Satellite view is fine.
Oh, Bing. Who used Bing? Okay. I'm not scoring any points, am I?
You're fine. Google Earth here will make this.
Well, let me get Google first because it's stuck on Bing.
Google Earth specifically. That will make it the visual that we need.
Yeah.
Maybe we can have the lawyer solve
Fire
this
away.
one. So again, for anyone who's watching this fun little debate, like problem resolution situation here, we're on Google. We're going to Google Earth. You can access it on your computer or on your phone or however you like to access Google Earth. It's a public resource. Great. Okay, we're super close. Let's just zoom in a little bit more. So Eric, pause here. So this is what's already built. We have an east-west sidewalk with a crosswalk already across the parking lot of Costco. So there's an east-west corridor connection that already exists. Regardless of what happens to the south, I guess that's lot 3. Is that considered lot 3 there on the parcel? Regardless of what happens there, even if that never happens, my intent here is that we still have some crossing be built. And so because that regardless of whether there's a bank, whether there's anything that comes in there, there's still going to be a pedestrian flow that's going to go across this area. So I think we can solve this by doing this conditional condition, such that it doesn't put the onus on the applicant to do something that potentially creates a code compliant ramp to nowhere, and it doesn't commit the applicant or the developer here to do something without the crosswalk also being in there. So the language that I would like to propose, I'll toss it out casually before I make a motion on this, and then welcome Jeremy's feedback if he has any suggestions, and the applicant and any staff, is that the applicant agrees to, so this is will be a condition added on. The applicant agrees to construct a code compliant curb cut on the applicant's southwest property line within 12 months if a code compliant curb cut is constructed on the north side of lot 3, connecting into the existing east-west sidewalk. Before the applicant responds, I would like to consult with the assistant city attorney.
Commissioner Poppin, I think my concern is more of practicality. I believe that landscaping, so the crusher we see kind of like in the left-hand side right there is probably Costco property. Mm-hmm. So I'd be concerned about making it a southwest property line condition, because if we put the onerous back on Diamond G, lot 3 isn't touching that spot right there, and so you'll still have the crosswalk. You'll have the curb cut to nowhere. So I think to achieve your point, I would say the southern property line.
Keep going the other way.
This way?
Nope, the other way. Keep going, see where the parking lot
Oh, yeah.
that comes right.
Yep.
Yep.
So, yeah, I guess my intent with saying, so maybe we can clarify this. My intent with saying southwest property line was not the corner per se, but was giving the applicant actually flexibility to do what Drew was suggesting of, hey, if we need to shift the exact access points or the curb cuts, there is flexibility within the language to do that. Daniel.
So I love everything you just said. I would only request one change.
Sure.
Is that I've actually, I've got a great boss. I really do. She's been texting me this whole time. But she's had a great idea. And I'm trying to pull up, hey, Dawn, would you mind driving her for a sec? Get me to my slides. I would like to show you guys something real quick.
Please.
So what I would like to do is propose that the condition, let's be specific on the location, right?
Okay.
We have Diamond G who's here, although technically we don't want to involve them on any, because they can't, right? This is about me right now.
All about you.
Right. So what I would like to do is coming out of our property here. Yes. So it lines up right with my walkway, and it'll connect to Drew's property. So the condition to be within everything you said, Commissioner Popkin, but let's be specific on the location.
Sure.
So it's A, in my control, B, it makes the most sense, and C, you've got Diamond G owns the property to the south. Right, Drew? Oh, wait, it's not, yeah, I mean,
don't think it matters to you whereabouts along that sidewalk you have the curb cut then.
I don't. What scares me is that Costco owns to the back of the existing sidewalk.
Which would allow us to make our best efforts. Look, we're all trying to do the same thing here,
Yep,
right?
yep.
I think what's been proposed, everybody's on board that it's a good idea. After 12 months, if there isn't a developer that's done it, that's done the work or has plans, meaning they needed Costco's approval, there's nothing more that can be done. I mean, we've beat this dead horse, and it's an important dead horse. I mean, I'm glad that we've addressed it to the extent that we have.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the 800-pound gorilla, which is Costco, and there's no telling how they're going to react to this. As the project in front of you right now, this is pretty specific. This meets to the extent this is a bigger problem. I hate to say, it's not my problem, but I want to help the problem by saying, let's do the curb cut in this exact location. If and when that project to the south is ready to be developed, condition be placed on them to put it there. And I mean, other than that, I don't know if any one of us can do more than what we have.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I would actually think that would be the optimal location to put it. I agree
Right.
with you on that. So I'd be happy to amend what I was suggesting there to include that specificity, if that's helpful. If you would appreciate having a little flexibility, 12 feet plus or minus, in either direction, or 10 meters, like whatever range of flexibility, just to have that from a construction design standpoint in case something comes up. Happy to do that. I don't want to make it overly onerous in case you run into something, or
Yeah.
Drew needs to shift it by 10 feet.
Yeah, I don't see that being a problem. I think the intent, everybody agrees that's the ideal location. But if it helps Drew and the future owner of that pad develop his site, and maybe Costco has a say, we would be amenable to that.
Okay, thank you. Jeremy, thank you for sending me some updated language there. It doesn't address what Daniel was suggesting specifically, of like demarcating like exactly the location. I don't personally object if we just say southern property line. The applicant can do what they deem appropriate where they want it, if it is not restrictive.
Yes, if it's not restrictive for me, yes, 100%. As long as it's within my control, I'm okay with that too. The last thing I would want is for the developer to the south to suggest it to be in a location that interferes with my gas, water, drive-through, anything
Exactly.
like that. So if it's in my control, which is how this whole thing started, I'm good with that.
Great. I will read then the slightly tweaked language that the assistant city attorney and I were working on, and then I'll pause to see if Commissioner Height wants to add anything or adjust anything from there. I do not want this. I would not be supportive of this, and I don't think it would solve the problem if this is conditioned upon that north-south walkway being built, because I don't think that is fundamentally necessary for the site flow. And my hope is that the applicant, the developer who's present, and that Costco can work together in good faith, stemming from this discussion, to make this as seamless and frankly economical as possible to do when it makes sense for each of the respective parties.
Right.
So the language that I intend to propose, unless there are friendly amendments to this, the applicant agrees to construct a code-compliant pedestrian walk on the. Do we need to specify a curb cut? No. Do we need to specify curb cut to get that ramp?
About ADA
Or code
ramp.
compliant should.
About ADA ramp.
Okay. Yeah, it's just the curb cut itself. Yeah, the app.
John, what should we call it? ADA ramp or what?
ADA ramp is what they want to call it.
Okay. The applicant agrees to construct an ADA compliant ramp on the applicant's southern property line within 12 months if an ADA compliant ramp is constructed on the north side of lot 3 with an identified pedestrian crossing on the North Costco entrance private drive.
Can we just clarify that? Is that 12 months from RCFO or 12 months upon Just clarify the 12 months.
Within
part.
12 months, it's like if and of. Let me work on that specificity. I agree with you
Yeah.
on clarifying that. I will yield to Commissioner Height.
Commissioner Height.
Whose question was why 12 months? Just when it goes in, it goes in. Why put a time limit on it?
That might have been my fault. I initially suggested that, but to your point, Commissioner, I'm fine with
Matching it when it gets matched.
within reason, right? I mean, if they're getting it built and they already have a bid out, and now I'm under the gun to find somebody to do it really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we're changing the word if to of, and I think it solves it. So the applicant agrees to construct an ADA compliant ramp on the applicant's southern property line within 12 months of an ADA compliant ramp constructed on the north side of Lot 3 with an identified pedestrian crossing on the North Costco entrance private drive. So this conditional condition,
Do we want to add the Costco part or not? I don't.
No, please leave
Don't-
Costco
don't
out of it.
Leave Costco out of it.
the only thing that references Costco is the north, is the describing the street. It's not
The Costco entrance.
North Costco entrance
Okay.
private drive. That's
Right.
that's why Costco's referenced there. That's just a specificity of what the roadway is. Yep. So I'll read it one more time. The applicant agrees to construct an ADA compliant ramp on the applicant's southern property line within 12 months of an ADA compliant ramp constructed on the north side of Lot 3 with an identified pedestrian crossing on the North Costco entrance private drive. That means
Yes.
so just in practice, what that means is once, if and when a code compliant ramp is built on the north side of Lot 3, then that's the 12 months.
But then that obligates me to putting it directly across from him. And I thought the spirit of this was that the location is going to be within In-N-Out's control. So it doesn't interfere with any of my...
It was giving you the latitude on the southern property line. However, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Ideally, that would be like, it's just weird
Right.
because there's one step removed between applicant, which is you, and the developer here.
Here's what you guys do have control of right now. In-N-Out, right? And not just that, you've got a compliant applicant in front of you who wants to, for the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish, also wants to accomplish it. Let's be specific. Let's specifically say that the ADA ramp, if and when it ever goes In-N-Out can do it on day one, or In-N-Out has to get it done within 365, if we do the 12 months, of when the southern parcel starts or gets entitlement on their land. All I'm suggesting is let's just be specific. It's going in that area to the south of that walkway. You've said it yourself. I said it. That's where it makes the most sense. So to the extent that we're catering to somebody who and if may or may not ever come in and get approval from another third party who's not here, and we want it to be there. When it goes there, we might do it on day one. We may do it. We may wait the 12 months until somebody else comes in. But what you do have control of is In-N-Out, and I'm willing to, let's just say, let's get it done in that location south of the walkway. And this way it clears up a lot of the confusion.
Commissioner Teta.
Can we just use the word concurrently instead of the, for all of the temporal, instead of 12 months, concurrent?
Or sooner, concurrent or sooner. In-N-Out can do it as soon, but no later than concurrently.
Commissioner Popkin.
I appreciate Commissioner Ted's addition there. I have no problem with putting it concurrently or sooner.
As long as there's nothing that prevents me from doing it sooner than that.
Look, I want this to happen. I want this to happen
Right.
responsibly. I want this to happen for the site flow, and I want this to happen in a way that the applicant and the developer, and ideally Costco overall, makes sense for them. And I
Right.
think it will enhance the regional center intention of this area. So, Commissioner.
Read again the language regarding Lot 3, because this sidewalk might not, it might be stay on Costco's property. if it goes on Costco's property, if as designed or as written in, or as depicted on Exhibit 6, it's not really on Lot 3. It might stay on Costco. And so I just want to make sure that the way I think you read it, it's as if and when it's built on Lot 3. If it's not built on Lot 3, then we've put ourselves in a trick box that we don't need to be in. So just when the sidewalk gets built, which is back to what you didn't want to do, well, it's where we are.
Commissioner Popkin.
Yeah, it's not. This should be concurrent with just a parallel or like adjacent curb cut being put in on the other side.
Right.
And whether it's, frankly, like whether it's the north of Lot 3 or like maybe we need broader language here because we can't require anything from the other developer or Costco at this point. Just in and out.
That's
And
my
so
point, right?
This in some ways should just be concurrently or sooner of an ADA compliant ramp constructed on just the. It's not even Lot 3.
Because in all honesty, what we saw on Google Earth was a curb cut. That's where that's going to be.
That's where it will be, yeah, but it's not a curb cut currently.
Well, it's something. It looks like
It's a sidewalk with a curb. It's just not an ADA accessible ramp. Yes, we just don't have that.
that's where it's going to be.
Well, we don't know because Costco may not want to put it there.
But that, I'm just saying, playing devil's advocate, and that's not Lot 3.
Yeah. So how? Okay, Jeremy or staff, how do we refer to the sidewalk that is north of Lot 3 and/or the Costco parking lot, depending on the exact place that you're standing? Like, what is that sidewalk called? Is there a number or a numerical reference to that sidewalk line?
I mean, it's the sidewalk on the south side of the North Costco access road or whatever the term is that's on the site plan.
The intersection of the north-south sidewalk.
No.
East-west.
East-west.
As it connects to the east-west. Isn't the sidewalk that we're worried about the north-south sidewalk that attaches to the multifamily homes to the south?
No.
No, we're worried about where the curb cut's going to be on the east-west sidewalk.
If people need to walk 5 feet from that long thing, like that doesn't matter to me. From the house pad to past the bank, if they're getting to the North Costco entrance and they need to walk 5 feet to the east to cross safely here,
I don't think that's
fine.
asking too much.
That
Yeah.
is fine. People will respect that. That is within the realm of human expectation here.
Yeah.
And I think that would result in a very safe pedestrian flow for the site. So we just need to define. So it's the south. To Don's point, it's the south side of North Costco entrance, private drive, south side of the east-west sidewalk. Sidewalk on North Costco Drive. I think I have this. I will read it one more time for everyone's sanity or not. And again, I appreciate the applicant and staff's sincere patience here and willingness to try to find a solution. South side of the east-west sidewalk on. South side of the east-west sidewalk on. Okay. You are all going to hate me for this, but pay attention to the geography here. The applicant agrees to construct an ADA-compliant ramp on the applicant's southern property line concurrently or sooner of an ADA-compliant ramp constructed on the south side. South side.
That's
of the-
redundant.
No.
You're going to say south side of North Costco Avenue.
It's constructed on the east-west sidewalk on the south side of North Costco entrance private drive. Provided there is an identified pedestrian crossing on the North Costco entrance private drive.
In an agreeable location to applicant. Because everything you
I'm
said.
fine with that.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay with that. An agreeable location.
And Jeremy, I just want to check, if they do put in an ADA walk there before, not concurrent, but before, so basically ADA ramp to nowhere, is that okay? Does the city have any concerns that they would be putting and encouraging somebody to walk across the street when there is something not on the other side? I just want to make sure that there's no legal issues for the city on that.
It's private property, so it wouldn't impact the city. I can't speak to the applicant's legal liability or who
Well,
owns the
Yeah,
property.
but we're putting the responsibility to build that at any time. We're allowing that. I just want to make sure the city isn't liable at some point because nope.
We wouldn't
Okay.
be liable for the private property.
Okay.
and just for the record, the only reason we're even agreeing to this is because we're being asked to do it. So we wouldn't accept any liability for what's being asked of us either. So.
All right.
No, I'm not. But I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night.
Jane, Jeremy, I sent you the draft language. I think I'm going to motion now for. So to try to bring this to an end, I would like to motion. Oh, shoot, I have to get the number of the resolution. Just looking around the commission, are there any other conditions that commissioners were thinking of that they'd want to add to this? Yeah, no, I'd work off of existing. Okay. Approval. Condition 2. Yes. Okay. 224.9. Yeah. Okay. So I would like to motion for conditional approval of PZR 2024-9B, a resolution of the Planning and Zoning Commission recommending conditional approval of the in-and-out conditional secondary use plan with the condition proposed by staff as well as the following language. And Jane, this is exactly what I sent you. The applicant agrees to construct an ADA compliant ramp on the applicant's southern property line concurrently or sooner of an ADA compliant ramp constructed on the east-west sidewalk on the south side of North Costco entrance private drive, provided there is an identified pedestrian crossing on the North Costco entrance private drive in an agreeable location to the applicant. I see a nod and a thumbs up from the applicant. I appreciate their willingness to work through this with us.
Of course.
That is my motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Commissioner Boone. Any other comments? I just want to say I do like this plan. I do, in looking over especially the mobility part of it, there were plenty of pedestrian and of bike routes to it. When you get into something like this and you have cars and you have the drive-through, there's no way to have a perfect plan for that. The plan they came up with is a very good plan. The city agrees with the plan, so I am for this. Any other comments from the commission? If not, let's take our vote. Jane?
Commissioner Height,
Well, yes.
Commissioner Tetta,
Yes.
Commissioner Boone? Yes. Chair Poland?
Yes.
Commissioner Popkin?
Thank you.
Chair, that passes unanimously 5-0.
Thank you, Jane. This item will now be forwarded to the Longmont City Council for action. If you are unfamiliar with council procedures and intend to appear before City Council, please contact the Planning Division for further information at 303-651-8330. I want to say thank you to Don, thank you to the applicant, and thank you to everybody who participated in this.
Point of personal privilege.
Sure. Oh, sure, Commissioner Popkin.
Yeah, just a quick point of personal privilege before the applicant most likely leaves. I just want to say thank you very much to the applicant and development team for working through that. I know it's a very small piece of a very large thing, but as part of the regional center, I appreciate your willingness to try to troubleshoot that, as well as staff for helping lean in there, and Assistant City Attorney Jeremy as well. So thank you all for getting to a solution that we were all comfortable with.
Okay, and that is it for the public hearing items. Next is item number 7. Other business, the 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission applicant recommendations, discussion, and action item. Grant, are you going to run with this?
I'll be happy to try to run. I might walk instead, but given the time. So just an overview of kind of the history and what brought us here. And I think we have distributed some information, but as I think the commission knows, there was a subcommittee put together that did put together recommendations that, again, I believe the commission has for appointments for the upcoming 2025 commission. So I think the next step is to get consensus and a specific recommendation from the commission to forward on to City Council for their review.
Thank you. Yeah, and Commissioner Height and I were the two who did the interviews. Grant was also present for them. There were 8 applicants. I think I can safely say, in our view, between me and Commissioner Height, that 3 that we felt kind of stood out from the others that we would recommend for the permanent spots. There were 3 people that we really liked that we think would make good alternates. The other 2 people we just didn't feel quite measured up to what we heard from the other 6 as being prepared. So that's kind of how we came about it. Commissioner Height, do you have any input?
No, other than to thank all the applicants for their interest. The people in the back don't need to hear me now. They're gone. It was a robust panel of applicants. Appreciated all of them showing interest, and it was kind of tough to discern who we wanted, but I think we made pretty good recommendations on whom we thought were the 3 most qualified to serve as full commissioners. And was it 3 and 3?
3 and 3.
3 and 3, and the 3 alternates of that panel of 8. The other 2 that we didn't pick, I encourage them to learn more and come back.
Are there any comments, any questions from the other commissioners? If not, would somebody like to make a motion that we move forward the slate as noted? Okay, I'll go ahead. I move that we go ahead and forward to the City Council the slate of 3 permanent members and not permanent members, 3 full-time members and 3 alternates, as noted in the what did you put forward, Grant? What do we call that?
I can pull up the actual memo, but essentially it's the commission's recommendation to City Council.
Yeah. Recommendation letter. I move forward that we move that letter of recommendation to the City Council. Do we have a second? Commissioner Popkin?
Second.
Any other comments, any questions? If not, Jane, let's go ahead and call for a vote.
Commissioner Height? Aye. Commissioner Tedda?
Aye.
Commissioner Boone? Aye. Chair Poland? Aye. Commissioner Popkin? Aye. Chair, that passes unanimously 5-0.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move to final call. Public invited to be heard. Nobody had signed up for it. If anybody in the audience would like to come forward. Seeing nobody come forward, I'll go ahead and close out public invited to be heard final call. Next is items from the commission. Commissioner Popkin.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully this will not be as long of a discussion as what we just had. For the last couple meetings, I know I wasn't at the most recent one in October, but I think in August I suggested to the Commission that it might behoove us to have a study session in the new year on a few different topics that we have run into and that we might foresee coming up as potential trends or issues related to proposals we might face. So I think it would be wise and prudent for us to not only have a study session, but to have that with the intention of potentially making recommendations on some of the topics that I'll outline in a moment, and I'm open to additional topics and discussion as well. If those are of interest, I have not received any since August from my fellow commissioners. But I think it would behoove us to consider not only those trends and those potential issues, but if there are recommendations that we should offer as a recommending body to City Council in that way. The 4 topics that come to my mind here specifically relate to, and I can go into more detail on each of them as is helpful. The first is on kind of current bike parking amounts were determined, or how those were determined, and what options exist to optimize location and amount of bike parking, including understanding trends in bicycle and e-bicycle, electric bicycle use over the past 5 years and what that demand might look like going forward. Number 2, the alignment of drive-throughs with different zoning areas in Envision Longmont. Number 3, the potential impediments to infill development or redevelopment in the land use code and Longmont development standards more generally. And understanding the role of the Planning and Zoning Commission in the urban renewal planning process. So those are the 4 topics. I would very much welcome input from the Commission on how many of those you're interested. I think we could probably, I think some of those are some might be clarifications and just helping us understand what our role is in certain situations. I think some might involve a little bit of staff time and research, especially on the bicycle question and the kind of the future trends there.
What was number 3?
Number 3 was potential impediments to infill redevelopment in the land use code and Longmont development standards. Again, we do not. I do not have an agenda of what like the recommendations should be here. I think the intention here is that we understand some of these topics more thoroughly and how they might relate to some of our decision making, and whether we want to make recommendations to City Council on any or all of those.
Okay, I would also like to throw it over to either, well, I'm just going to say to Planning Development Services, either Grant or Don, if you have any feedback, if any of these topics you say, yeah, that's something definitely we can do, or something that may not be in our bailiwick.
Chairman, members of the Commission, I guess one of the questions I would have, I think a couple topics were probably more, I'll say, educational, exploratory. It sounded like there was also a desire to explore options to potentially make recommendations in terms of policy, et cetera. And I guess just for clarification, if you could provide at least your intent so we could weigh in. And I guess secondarily, I would add, I agree, there's a couple that probably would be a pretty big lift for staff to provide, I guess, a significant amount of research, unless it's just, I guess, dialogue amongst the commission. I think we would probably need some time to prepare. Again, definitely looking forward into next year. I would be reticent to commit to specific dates for those. Again, I think they're all good topics for discussion, but yeah, maybe you can shed a little more light on what the long-term intent.
Sure. I think you're right that all are at least exploratory, and some might be recommendations. I think understanding the role of the Planning and Zoning Commission in the urban renewal process, if any, is something that wouldn't necessarily involve us making a recommendation on. For instance, it's just, what is our role? And if that's easier, just answer via email, also fine by me. We don't have to necessarily all gather together to hear that, but that would be appreciated in some way, shape, or form. The other 3 potential impediments to infill redevelopment, I realize that might be the most open-ended one. And so I think we're, with the intention of Envision Longmont and some of the planning that was done in the last few years around the steam corridor and the sugar mill area, those areas, if I'm understanding terminology and planning correctly, would be considered all infill development, and maybe specifically infill redevelopment if we're talking about brownfield sites and sites that had previously been developed. So if redevelop, I guess I would ask you, if specifying redevelopment narrows what you focus on, I would be fine with making sure that is clear, because I do want to keep this more focused on what those types of situations might be. So that's on that one. We've dealt with 3 drive-through issues this year, and maybe that's just sheer circumstance of when applicants came through, and that's probably not the norm in a year. Certainly wasn't in my first year. So if that is truly an exception to the norm from your experience, respectively in different to different levels, maybe that's unnecessary. And so I'd welcome your comments on that. I think the one hopefully is both focused and hopefully staff has a fairly good awareness of, generally it might take a little bit of work, is the bicycle question. I'm curious to know when I think it's 5% of parking spaces, when that was determined, what options, we actually learned from Ben a little bit tonight about how location is thought of. So maybe that's less important here than the amount of bike parking and the trends that we expect to see as a city in bicycle parking and e-bike use, especially with some state incentives that have gone into place recently. And so how that demand would impact how we might think about some of those land uses. Hopefully that's a fairly focused one and would involve a little bit of research to do right, but hopefully that's not super expansive. And welcome your thoughts on the other 2, on the drive-throughs and whether that's necessary, and the potential impediments to infill redevelopment.
Yeah, and Don, yeah, if you want to weigh in on any of these topics, feel free. So my initial thought is, looking at, I'll say 1, 2, and 4, my suggestion would be to, I guess, look at kind of an educational session with the commission, talk history, code, kind of where we, got to where we are, or how we got to where we are, as just a jumping off point. I think that probably does make sense if you're interested in that. To your point, the role of Planning and Zoning Commission, in terms of, I'll say urban renewal, et cetera. It could be a short conversation. It could be, if you're interested, we could probably have Tony Chacon and or Laura just join just for an educational session as well to kind of speak through, which I think may just be helpful for broader context. So again, those would probably be the low-hanging fruit, at least as a jumping off point. When I heard the description of potential impediments, to me, I automatically jumped to getting into real code analysis of what those impediments are, which I'm reticent to say staff could commit to a significant lift in time to do that exercise without direction from council, just because that isn't something that we have been directed to do. I would say if we were in a code update cycle, that's something that we undoubtedly would do. And to your point, and or if we were going through Envision Longmont update, that would probably be just a natural assessment. So again, hearing these topics for the first time, that would be kind of my initial reaction. I would suggest, again, at least starting off with kind of the educational components, and then maybe we could, from a staff perspective, look to see if, again, even at a high level, what we may have just, I'll say in the last 5 years, at least, again, just at a review level, identified as potential impediments, or maybe what we've heard. What I don't know, and maybe Don can weigh in, I don't know if we've been keeping track, so to speak, of impediments enough so that we could have a fruitful discussion of, yeah, these are the things. Typically what I would want to do is, do the outreach, get all that input, kind of do the check of where are we today, and then, hear from the development community and get their perspective before staff did a deep dive of, again, what potential solutions, so on and so forth. So, Don, I don't know if you have any thoughts as well. Feel free.
I never pass up a chance to talk. So, a couple of things. First, on the urban renewal, I would say that I think that'd be a great idea to have Tony and Laura come give you guys kind of some background information. One of the things that I would make sure that you're aware of is related to the STEAM process that the city went through a number of years ago when Councilmember Waters made a motion and directed staff to work on a plan for the area that started basically at South Main Street and then worked all the way out to the Sugar Mill area. My recollection was that there was a liaison from the Planning Commission involved in some of those meetings. They ended up with a plan that the council approved, but the council drove that, just so you know. That was, they made the motions, they told staff what they expected, and we worked with a consultant to come up with a general plan for redevelopment of that area. Oftentimes, council can make a decision as the elected officials to choose to do it themselves and not depend on the expertise of the Planning Commission, who really deals with a lot of the land use issues. And I think that's unfortunate, but it does happen. So I think at a minimum, though, as Grant described, getting Laura and Tony here for the urban renewal education, understanding like where are our areas at, what plans do we have in place, maybe some what we can share about what's going on as far as projects or interest in the area. That could be a very interesting session. From the standpoint of impediments to infill, I think that could be, as Grant noted, a really very wide range of topics. But one thing that I would note from the land development code side is that in 2018, when we did the update to the land development code, we specifically added a number of staff level variances for infill and redevelopment that the council approved that allows Grant to be able to approve variances greater than 20%, or 25 now with the minor mod, up to 100% for infill and redevelopment.
Can you just repeat that one more time?
So in a normal situation, like let's talk about, say, the project we just looked at tonight. Let's say that they didn't have to come to the Planning Commission. Okay? They are supposed to provide a 10-foot setback, but they're only providing 9. Okay? We have the ability under the admin mod provisions in the land development code to grant up to a 25% relief as long as we believe the criteria are met for that relief. It's a staff level variance. We've had that since about 2003 in our land development code. Okay? What we put forward, because of the uniqueness of properties that are infill and redevelopment, and council agreed to it, was that they can request on an infill and redevelopment parcel project relief of that 10-foot setback up to 100%. And it's
If staff agrees.
If staff agrees, and if we believe that it's justified, we have criteria we have to evaluate it against. But that was some of the ways that we looked at trying to overcome some of the hurdles that we were seeing, because we were seeing folks coming in who would have proposals, but once they knew it had to go into the public process through a hearing, notifying all the neighbors, and they would bail. They would leave and they would say, we're done. We're not going to do that. We don't want to have to deal with the not in my backyard kind of concerns. And that I think we hear quite a bit. That's
Let
one
alone
of the reasons.
an ADA compliant ramp to nowhere.
ADA compliant ramp to nowhere. So all I would say is that, one, understand we did try to build in some things, some tools into the land development code for infill redevelopment. But again, this infill redevelopment, what is hindering could be related to the cost of the raw water. It could be related to the cost of our affordable housing requirement. It could be related to that we are in a floodplain and we're still waiting for FEMA to approve maps or to construct improvements that takes property out of it. There's a number of things that we could talk about. That's why I believe the scope is huge here. So it'd just be good to understand maybe a little bit more of what you're thinking we would talk about so we could have the right people here to get into those topics. From the drive-through standpoint, we haven't had any for a number of years.
Okay.
But I expect that we're going to get a few more, not because we've done any pre-apps, but just looking at the developments themselves. That lot across from In and Out, potential right there for another drive-through, just because of the zoning and the location, and there's still less than 50% of the property left, right? That's not with a secondary use. So I could see somebody coming in and requesting that. The lots out by the McDonald's, those are set up as 1 acre lots. If you look at the McDonald's or the Walmart up north, I could see us getting, again, some kind of drive-through, either restaurant, bank, other kinds of opportunities for drive-throughs. And that's just a relationship to the subdivisions that we've recently approved and the way those are lotted. And then from the bike ratio, I would say that Ben and Phil looked at the bicycle parking ratios in 2018 when we did the land development code update. But I think things have changed, as you point out, whether it be the use of the e-bikes now, whether it be just in general, I would say folks who, especially in Longmont, you know, we're trying to encourage it. So I think we have a higher rate maybe than other locations in the United States. So maybe it is worth talking to them and seeing if they have any additional background or information or anything in the literature talking about percentage of use.
Great. I just very quickly, and I want to hear from my fellow commissioners. I appreciate Grant, Don, the very thoughtful responses there. I think I'm taking away from that at a minimum. I'm going to remove my suggestion for the impediments to infill redevelopment right now. I agree that it was broad, and I have heard both of you in terms of just how potentially broad and labor intensive it could be to try to cover that. And I will sit with that and think about maybe how more specific I can get before coming back to the commission on that one. So I'll keep the bike parking and maybe related issues to bike density or something like that in there. I'm sure Phil and Ben can both speak to the alignment of drive-throughs. Don, I think you made a really interesting point there, that even if we haven't had a lot for a while, if there are potential lots where we could see more, I mean, it would be a very interesting situation if someone did try to propose a second drive-through in an existing regional center where we've already approved one. And if I'm reading maybe slightly liberally the Envision Longmont description of what a regional center is, it starts to stretch the bounds from my perspective. So I think that would be a very productive discussion to have, to hear from to hear from staff on, and maybe determine whether we want to make some kind of recommendation to council on what's truly appropriate for an effective regional center. And then it sounds like understanding the role of P&Z in the urban renewal process is fairly straightforward. Having Tony and Laura present, or one of them, to discuss could be really valuable for us. Don, you had made an interesting, you were delineating a couple things when you were talking about the kind of past work that's been done. It was like the current status. I liked the specificity of what you said. And it was the current status of plans or proposals, or just remind me what that language is so I can be a little bit helpful in guiding staff.
I was kind of winging it, so I'm not probably going to remember, but we have the existing STEAM plan, for example, that covers the urban renewal area that is from Main Street to the east out towards the sugar mill.
That goes all the way through the sugar mill area?
So that would
Right.
be, like an update on that would probably be beneficial for you to understand what Tony has worked on with the council in the past and where that stands. And if he has any others that we've worked on that are in areas that he could share, that would be probably to your benefit as well.
Yeah, is it appropriate to ask about like the current pipeline of projects in those areas, or is that not respectful for applicants at this point?
I may lean on Jeremy a little bit if he has knowledge. I don't know. I mean, unless there's I guess, a specific NDA equivalent that Tony has been working with, prospective applicants. I don't see a reason why they couldn't share that type of information. There may be, I'll say, informal conversations that he may not be comfortable sharing, but I would assume once there is a real project that he's coordinating, no reason not to. Again, I'm sure there's some sensitive information, contracts, et cetera, that he couldn't share, but at least any prospective real projects, I don't see why that couldn't happen.
Okay. Thank you. I would very much welcome comments from my fellow commissioners on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Boone.
Thank you, Chair. So we have 6 new commissioners coming on board. That's a lot. And it seems to me like this would be an appropriate time in the new year to do a little bit of education. Although all of these people have an interest in planning and development, as do we, none of us are professional planners and have not had that education. You maybe have had a little, no.
Well, I'm not a professional planner.
Well, I know, but okay. And so we don't know as much as you guys about planning. Before I was ever even an alternate commissioner, I attended it was a citizen education program that Jennifer did. That was many years ago, that was the thing that really got me excited about planning and development in our city. And although that went over several weeks, I want to say it was 4 weeks, maybe it was more than that, maybe it was 6. There was a lot of information put forth, and almost in layman's terms, that clarified a lot of things and showed the big picture and the overall plan. And I think it's really important that we as commissioners realize that we're not trying to do your job. You guys are the experts, and we are a citizen advisory board. But having all of that, some of that knowledge would be very useful, especially for having 6 new people coming on board. That whole concept scares me a little bit. So these are some really specific things that that Commissioner Popkin has asked for, but I'm thinking that a more overall educational session or 2 might be really valuable for everybody.
Commissioner Height.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much more of our time on this, but Commissioner Popkin talked to me about this matter, and in the context of interviewing the new applicants, it became apparent that this commission is somewhat reactionary in the fact that we sit here and review plans, as opposed to being more visionary, which I think our role contemplates, insofar as we review and recommend to City Council changes or thoughts. Legislation, I guess, is really what we're supposed to be proposing at one level. And we do have meetings scheduled twice a month, and we generally only meet once, if at all. And the opportunity to, Matthew, Commissioner Popkin, brings forward a whole bunch of interesting ideas that would be interesting to know more about, to the extent that we could impose upon staff to learn. That would be great. If it's too much of a burden, then it's not so great. And the opportunity for us to vent, I mean, some of us are leaving, the experiences that we have that might be shared to make the process better. It's an opportunity that we don't seem to take advantage of. And meeting 2 of the months that we don't meet, if we left that open as an option in certain circumstances to address specific agenda items that might be brought forward by commission members, I think would be a worthwhile endeavor. And I applauded Commissioner Popkin for taking the lead on this. So thank you.
Commissioner Popkin?
I appreciate both Commissioner Boone and Commissioner Height's comments on that. And I appreciate staff's interest and willingness to support some of this. Hopefully this also makes your jobs easier, such that more often than not, we're running into fewer questions more often when we get proposals before us. And maybe we couldn't anticipate that we'd have a 2-hour discussion on ADA compliant curb cuts and the exact proximity to a certain area today. But more generally speaking, again, I don't come into this with any specific agenda as to what the recommendation outcome might be, or if there is even one. But I do agree with Commissioner Boone. I think she made a fantastic point that we're going to have we have a couple alternates who are recommended at this point now by the commission to join us as full-time members.
Right, it's just 4 that are brand new.
Yeah, and ideally, I would love to include in a study. Is it possible in the study session to include alternates as well?
Yes.
Then I would love to make sure that that is as inclusive as possible for all of the members, new and returning and upgraded, whatever the term might be for alternates coming to the regular commission. So I respect staff's feedback on the infill redevelopment. I will continue to sit with exactly what that might look like going forward. I'm going to go ahead and propose then my motion for a study session on the 3 topics that we focused on. I'll read the updated language. And Jane, I'll send that to you as well via email for your ease and sanity. And I actually would like this to come pretty early in the year and take advantage of that kind of 4th meeting that we generally have scheduled. And so unless there's a serious objection, I was going to propose it for January 22nd, which would be the 4th the 4th Wednesday of January. My hope is that by whittling down the topics slightly, it sounds like Ben and Phil, unless like staff are unavailable, like pending complete unavailability. I'd like to start off early. I think that would be helpful for the new members. Speaking as a relatively recent new member 2 years ago, like it was a very steep learning curve, and even just starting to talk about some of these topics in an environment divorced from a proposal would be valuable. I would actually be open to it at any point in January, on either meeting in January, if that's a slightly more broad motion, especially if we don't have a proposal for the first meeting scheduled. We usually go through bylaws. I don't have recommendations for the bylaws this year, which I did this past year. So hopefully that's a fairly straightforward meeting of just kind of welcoming. So I'll keep it open-ended on January 2025, but I'd like it to kind of start off the new year unless there's significant reservation or conflict from staff. So I would like to motion to hold that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a study session in January 2025 to discuss the following 3 topics: how current bike parking amounts were determined and what options may be reasonable to update the amount of bike parking, including but not limited to. Oh, that doesn't work. I'll tweak this language. Okay. How current bike parking amounts were determined, what options might be reasonable to update the amount of bike parking, and what trends in cycling and e-biking might merit our consideration. Secondly, the extent to which drive-throughs align with different zoning areas in Vision Longmont, and understanding the role of the Planning and Zoning Commission in the urban renewal planning process, including an update of the current status of the STEAM plan and any redevelopment in the STEAM area. I think that's narrowly enough tailored that it doesn't impose a huge burden on staff. I would also like to add one more thought on this, which is we spend most of our interactions as a commission and with staff in this room in a stand at a podium and present to us situation. And I'd actually love for this to be in a more lateral fashion in a study room or some other room where, to the extent that it meets all the legal requirements that we have to have as a convening body, being open to the public and all of that, that we can actually have more of a discussion study room type environment. I would like to include that in my motion, unless there's significant reservation from staff.
I don't think we need to specify that. It's understood by staff. And back about, it's been a while ago, but we had the presentation from planning development services about demographic changes in Longmont. That was like 8 years ago. And we had the study session across the street. So I don't think we need to.
If we don't need to
specify-
include that in the motion, that's fine. That would be my intention if that's doable and not a burden on anyone.
If I may interject.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start with one question. Is your intent to have all three topics on one evening?
Yes.
And so my reaction to that would be that might be a lot for one evening. And I guess second part of that is, since it involves, I guess, a variety of staff, I would hate to make a commitment on their behalf. Maybe if you could allow us some flexibility so we could aim for a January meeting on one of those topics, and if there's a preference, we can coordinate with staff. Since we are reconvening in December, I can probably give you a better indication in December if that is feasible for January. As much as I'd like to commit people outside of my.
Fair point. I appreciate that thoughtfulness, Grant. I'm thinking for a second. Chair, did you have a comment? Your mic was on, but I don't know if you had a.
Oh, no. I was just going to agree with Grant. That was my thought, too, is, first of all, having all three in one night is probably not, wouldn't give us enough ability to go into the depth that some of those topics may incur. Second of all, the time frame specifying that date, while maybe having one on that date, I would like to give Planning and Development Services time to be able to put forward appropriate presentations to us and not have a rushed presentation. So I would rather not be as specific on the timeframes. I think they understand the timeframes and our concerns. That's why I would be not as interested in putting a time frame saying as soon as development services can, in the first quarter, something more to that. I'm thinking more like that, openness, to give them the benefit to be able to look at it, because we are coming up on the holidays. There's probably not going to be a lot of work done between now and New Year's on this. So I would like to give them some flexibility in coming up with the topics and when they are presented. I could see it being like two different days.
Yeah, that would be my suggestion through the chair, Commission Member Popkin. As much flexibility as we can have, I think it would be appreciated, just because, again, it'll be multiple staff. I guess one option is we could try to bring a schedule back to the commission, looking at advance, first three meetings, first 3 second meetings in the new year. And again, with coordination through the multiple parties, see if that works for the commission as well. That would be at least my recommendation, kind of off the cuff, past my bedtime.
Commissioner Boone.
Thank you. I was just going to say, it doesn't seem like this is something that needs a motion and a vote. I think we all understand that we would like to get some more education, and it could just be a suggestion. You've heard us, and I think if you came back to next month, or even via email or something with, after you've thought about it, that would be sufficient in my.
That would definitely give us the most flexibility, and I would appreciate that.
Right. I just don't think we need the formality of demanding that you do that for us.
Commissioner Popkin.
Yeah, I had already blocked a time and date specifically in my calendar, so I was really hoping. No, that's fine by me. I think my sincere preference, my preference would be not have us all have to come like multiple second meetings of the month. So the leanest calendar that you think is feasible would be, I guess, my encouragement, and hopefully that also respect staff time too. So like by doing 1-1-1 might actually stretch things out a little bit excessively. So I'll give you flexibility on that. If we don't need to make a motion and you've heard us, fine by me. I thought from a topic standpoint that might be, I didn't know if that was necessary for staff direction, but if that's not the case, then
I would just say
Send you an
we
email?
generally have concurrence that those are the
Yeah.
topics you'd like to hear about. I think we can start to work on that, work on a schedule, and just coordinate the timing. We can also look, again, once we get the right people, they can at least estimate how much time they'd like to take to actually, give a presentation, and then gauge, kind of, do two topics make sense on one meeting?
Okay, I think we have a concurrence on that.
great. I would just add, my preference would be like as early in the year as is feasible. Thank you. Appreciate the commission's thoughtfulness and interest. Thank you.
One thing, Jeremy, we haven't done this for a few years, but the first meeting, as long as there wasn't, well, we might have had a pre-meeting about it actually, where we had the city attorney come in and go over some of the legal responsibilities that we have as a commission, some of the gotchas, some of the things we have to be careful of. And once again, considering the fact that there will be 6 new members, it might not, and for even all of us, it may not be a bad idea just to have a refresher, the open meetings, etc. So maybe we can put that on the January meeting.
Yes, Chair Poland, we can certainly look into that. We did do an individual training with Commissioner Lang when he came on for the open meeting. So we still been doing it just outside of the full meetings because you guys already had it. I think in 2023 would have been when it happened last. But yeah, now that we have more than a single commissioner that's coming on, they'll be new. We can look into that.
Okay, thank you. Any other items from the commission? Seeing none, we'll move over. Council Representative Rodriguez is not here. Items from Planning and Development Service Director Grant Penland.
I think we already indicated, but we will have an item, public hearing for December. And yeah, looking forward into January, we will likely have a couple lined up. So again, just speaking overall number of meetings, yeah, we definitely have some coming forward December and January.
Okay, thank you very much.
Don wants it to be on Christmas, 18th.
Oh, maybe we could do a study session on Christmas.
If you're willing.
Okay, that's it. And so we are now in adjournment.